Hi,
Hello, everyone. Still getting things set up here. Very important behind-the-scenes configurations. Things. Yes. Copy. You know the new username, right? My Nielsen Design Studio. Here, I'll do both.
Just
Okay. Here, why don't I tell everybody that's watching us online
what the password is
the
to get into all the
credentials for everything.
things. The coffee fund.
Okay. Oops, that was not what I was expecting there. Darn it.
There we go.
No. I don't want that. Oh, shoot. Okay. Congratulations, Christina.
Wow.
Woohoo.
Well, I'm not looking at the screen.
Meteorology, that's a tough one.
Meteorology,
Yeah,
air
really.
traffic management, and communications exams. Super happy. Well, that deserves a sound effect.
Sound of applause.
Woohoo! Way to go, Christina.
No, that's a big deal. That's good.
Okay. Now,
Right, I'm going to stop playing and try and be serious here.
I think I'm the only one that can hear Poppy's squeeze toy in the background. That's okay. I can just turn the volume down.
Yeah.
I was thinking, why is nobody else saying? Oh, that's why nobody else can
I
hear it
can't.
but
Yeah,
me.
we can't hear that.
And
Yeah.
Liz can hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and I'm almost there, Steph. Sorry, I'm being distracted. Not just by everything, not just one
All the
thing.
things.
All the things are distracting me. Well, yeah. Now you think about that, Liz.
Why do all these
She said-
airplanes keep crashing?
Let's see.
Which airplanes?
What happened now?
Well, you look at our news, and apart from dead
It's all-
people, it's just full of crashes.
Got it. Thanks. Joe. It's just
Well, if people weren't crashing, Nick, then
We would
what
have
the
nothing
heck
to
would we
talk
talk about?
Oh, man.
So, in a really sad, perverted way, we were very happy that people are out there crashing
Yeah.
airplanes.
That's where
As
the
long as it's not
the
us in the news, it's
airline crash
Yeah.
show.
we're good.
Oh, why am I?
why am I?
Oh, we got one story
It's
about
me.
a
It's
swarm of
me.
bees.
Hang on,
That's-
it's me.
Didn't we do that last week?
Sorry.
Perhaps
I
not.
was thinking, wow, this thing is really laggy all of a sudden.
Copy.
Yeah, Stephen, thank you.
Paste.
Always a critic.
Don't Hornet pilots have really colourful parachutes nowadays?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at least the ones in Australia. Do you think they're all like that?
Yeah, I think the idea is that they're a survival aid in that once you're on the ground, you can cut them up. You've got orange for day-glow orange, so you can be seen. You've got white if you're in the snow, not a lot used in Australia, I grant you. Green if you're in the jungle, blue if you're in the sea. So it gives you an option to hide under a bit of your parachute.
Ah. So you think all the countries are using that scheme?
I'm sure it's a Martin Baker. Well,
Ah.
I think the parachute
Part of the seat.
Aeroconical. Yeah, and they're part of the seat. So Martin Baker, if you want an aeroconical, I guess Martin Baker will say, "What colour would you like? We can give you gold lame for
We have
the
some custom colors.
prisons."
We have a designer, if you want to use our designer. We can match your cabinets. I don't know what that accent is, sorry. If I offended anybody.
I'm offended.
Okay. I know you are.
.com.
Very.
Always.
She's always sending me emails telling me how offended she is.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
How's the volume on that?
Perfect.
Sounds
That's very
fun.
nice.
All right, and I'm going to hit my recorder if everybody will do the same.
Ugh.
Fingers crossed.
Does
Although
someone
I have
actually hit
nice
the
solid
recorder?
internet.
Like,
Huh?
So
sounded like someone actually physically hit the recorder.
Yeah,
Oh, a
well,
new
I mean,
version of
no,
Audio
no,
Hijack is ready to install.
I was
Click
hitting
on
my
the-
recorder.
Wow, I've never heard that one.
Never happens.
Yeah, click on the record button in your
All right, so
recording
click and
software
record.
interface.
right now.
Oh, you know what I need to do?
What's that?
Holy crap. I need to get the SD card out of my computer and put it in my recording software recorder. Boy, that would have been a bad mistake. Yep. Okay, I need to find that window. What? Why did Soundbite quit unexpectedly? Oh, that's no good. That's my sound playing app. Yikes. It is a beta version of it, so that might be the problem.
Oh,
okay.
wait, the betas are free, is it?
Oh, well, I paid for the software.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You paid to beta test their software
Well,
for them. You're
because
such
it was
a
kind of
nice
doing
guy.
there was some weird stuff going on with the latest stable version with the latest versions of the iOS that I was using. And so somewhere I read, the beta may actually work more better. So that's what I had to do. Okay.
Man, wearing like a mask and stuff over my hair all day just does not do good things for my hair.
I thought it looked
No?
good.
It does. It looks great.
Does it? It's all
Yeah.
like
Yeah. It's that mushed up, what's the word? I don't know. Looks good, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
it's the latest
you
craze
see
in
this
Paris, I hear.
airplane?
Exactly.
The guy's prop isn't turning. He's dead
Yeah.
sticking this thing into the mountains. That's pretty brave, don't you think?
yeah, in the snow and everything else.
Okay.
Well, that's 2 minutes
Think.
of my recording wasted.
I think.
Is it
What's-
costing you
what's
something there,
wasted?
Nick?
Easy
I mean,
on my hard drive.
let's face it. Everybody is wasting their time being here.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yes, I am intentionally off camera because I have to lift up my screen to see my interface to make sure that the SD card is there. There we go. There I am. Okay, so we got the that open, and we had the sound. Oh no, I have to reopen Soundbite.
That's not FaceTime HD camera. Useless piece of kit.
Oh, that's weird. Huh. Okay. So they have this window, they call them racks on the soundbite. Kind of like the old radio station had these. Well, you have to be old and worked in radio to understand it. Anyway, where they put the sound carts in these racks. And so I set up one for today's show, and then now it's in a different order again. Everything is
Scrambled.
Yeah, and then the Radio Roger intro is missing.
Oh,
Okay, let me find that because we need Radio Roger to introduce our show. So let me get him over here. Sorry, everybody, but we're kind of delaying this whole start. But we're going to start. We're going to be going here very shortly. Trust me.
Yes, Nev, I know
You're
what a
listening
rack
to the
is
Airline
too.
Pilot
but I
Guy
don't
Show.
think Jeff does.
What's that?
I was
What'd you
just
say?
replying to Neville Bounds, who says he knows what a rack is.
Yes, but I'm talking about the radio type, the audio stuff, Nev.
Well, the radio type kind of almost works like that because, you used to be able to go Rangoon, Rangoon.
No, No, that's not the kind I'm talking about. Racks. APG 52. 452. Okay, so
You're listening to
you hear that, and you hear, and that. Yep. And and for good measure,
16 inches, huh?
What was that about?
you must have missed that show.
Don't know if you remember.
It was a really interesting show. It was a comment that she made at the very end of the show.
I just kind of made it like under my breath and didn't think
Oh,
anyone
I'm-
heard it.
Oh, I kind of
Except you could totally hear it on the recording.
yeah. So I could hear it when she was uttering it very, very softly, and then I decided to, up the
Clip
volume
it
a little
in.
bit on it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Fix the audio.
Do my audio tweaks. Okay. Yes. No, we're talking about my. Liz, that's horrible. Glad they can't hear you. Okay, are we all ready? Are you
Ready
ready,
to go.
Liz?
Ready.
In the control room? Okay, the control room's ready in Toronto. Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can do a clap or a... all right, APG 452 in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Very good. And looks like we're starting at about 16:16 Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, that's pretty good.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 452.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 10th of December, 2020.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a Boeing 777 suffers an engine failure after taking off in Okinawa. A light aircraft makes a safe emergency landing on a major highway near Minneapolis. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, The Legend. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 452 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation in New York City. Yes, and you're listening, dear listener, to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we cover the latest in aviation news and answer your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia, and joining me from her lakeside studio in South, it's a doctor, a skydiver, a marathon runner, a strength training junkie, an IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated backstabbing jumper-dumper, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Nice to see you guys this afternoon. Looking forward to a great show.
Sweet. And also joining us from his home studio in the Valley of the Sun, world traveler, airplane mechanic, Breitling cognoscenti, fitness hound, and international air freight captain. It is Miami Rick.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be back. Happy to see you all. Looking forward to another great one.
Very nice. And also Last but not least, from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, retired captain for an international airline based in London. It's Captain Nick.
2 weeks to Christmas. Woo!
Now remember, we don't say Merry Christmas yet, though. Have you learned your lesson from the last show?
Well, probably, except I'm not, you'll have to remind me.
He hasn't. He hasn't learned his lesson. Let's go to the news.
12 days of Christmas, is that right? I don't know.
Stand by for news. Thank you, Paul Harvey. And the first item is sad news. Let's see. Retired Air Force Brigadier General Charles Chuck Yeager, the World War II fighter pilot ace and quintessential test pilot who showed he had the right stuff when in 1947 he became the first person to fly faster than the speed of sound, has died. He was 97 years old. Very long life. Yeager died Monday, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine said in a statement calling the death a tremendous loss to our nation. General Yeager's pioneering and innovative spirit advanced America's abilities in the sky and set our nation's dreams soaring into the jet age and the space age. He said, "You don't concentrate on risks, you concentrate on results. No risk is too great to prevent the necessary job from getting done," Stein said in a statement. And that's really all we're going to say about it at this point, because Captain Nick will be covering his life story in detail in today's Plane Tale. And I'm looking forward to that.
Look forward to that, absolutely.
All right. So we're going to jump right on in to item 2 in our news. And an Air Djibouti?
Djibouti.
Yeah,
Djibouti.
You shake
How's
Djibouti.
It's fine, thanks. Swinging free.
An Air Djibouti Boeing 737-500 registration Echo Yankee 560 performing flight 206 from Hargeisa? I don't know. Somewhere in Somalia to Garowe in some Garowe. Yeah? Is that what it is? Or are you
I
just
think so.
guessing?
I've never been to Somalia, but I've been to Djibouti as well, but never been to those places.
But you do speak the language, so I'm going to have to go with
fluently, apparently. Yeah.
Fluently. With 39 passengers and 5 crew, landed at that G word, the capital of Puntland Airport's runway 4 at about 9:30 local time, but suffered the collapse
somewhere
of the right-hand main gear at low
We'll
speed.
figure it out.
The aircraft staff, figure out the pronunciation of that, would you? All right. While I continue here. The aircraft veered to the right. She's working on it, she said. The aircraft veered to the right, but came to stop within the runway edge, resting on a right-hand engine, left main, and nose gear. There were no injuries. The passengers disembarked and evacuated onto the runway and were taken to the terminal. The flight had originated in Djibouti and was destined for Mogadishu in Somalia, with intermediate stops in those 2 other cities that we had just previously mentioned. Let's see, the runway of the accident, an asphalt runway, 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet length. So not
exactly long.
No, but not necessarily that short.
Not necessarily that short either. That's true.
Yeah. Let's see, the airline stated this morning, December 2nd, around 9 a.m., a Boeing 737 of Air Djibouti left the runway when it landed at the Garowe Puntland Airport following a tire problem, an incident that did not cause any injuries. No injuries among the 39 passengers and 5 crew members. Let me restate that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen and show you some pictures of this event. And let's see, here we go, and share. Okay, there you go. Are you all seeing that? So
Yep.
There's the Air Djibouti 737-500 resting on its right engine. And there's another view of it from there. You can kind of see the tire collapse gear in the background. I guess I didn't read that part of the story. They said that the fire truck and firefighting capability, apparently, that's it right there. You see the fire truck? It doesn't have a front right
It's
tire,
missing
and it's been that way for 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah, I don't
Important
think
bits there if it's going to respond to a
my
incident.
airline would not let us operate into that airport without an operating fire
No,
truck.
it's exactly right, and it's interesting you say that because it's one of the major things that we, well, not us as pilots, well, obviously us as pilots, but dispatch departments all over. Airport has to be obviously first there. There's got to be a runway, operable, some kind of instrument approach procedure if the weather's going to be below, a VMC, but also you need to have the facilities to deal with incidents and accidents should they happen. And so there's different classifications when it comes to that. And by the looks of that fire engine there, I don't know what the deal is with that particular airport.
I don't either.
Sorry,
Have
Jeff.
they parked it up against the runway so at least they can squirt? You've got to crash in the right spot, but at least they can give you a squirt if you're lucky.
Exactly.
Hey, Liz, can you remove the news
For those
thing because we
audio
can't see?
only listeners
blocked.
who are wondering why Jeff is laughing, it's because the news banner is right in front of my face, so I was trying to sneak my head up into the side so I could keep I
Oh,
couldn't see anyone. I had this big news banner in front of my face.
Anyway, so I'm looking at this story and thinking, what could have happened here? There's the runway, 422, 6,600 feet long, and what's this? That's the edge of the runway there. Yeah. Looks like
Tire marks on it?
some tire marks. I can kind of see why the right main gear collapsed.
Shouldn't there be
That
a
would,
sign
that
there
would-
saying warning ramp?
That would do it. That would do it.
Yeah,
And I mean, and it goes to say, I mean, as we were talking about a little bit earlier here, I mean, 6,600 feet. It's not exactly a long runway, but it's not a short. I mean, we used to put the 767 at max landing weight on a 5,700 foot long runway down in southern Brazil. It had to be obviously at it was sea level, and when you had to have every stopping mechanism available. Nothing could be written up or DDG'd as far as reversers and auto brakes. And so you'd come in there, flaps 30, maximum flap, auto brake, max auto. Both reversers had to be operable, and the auto speed brake had to be operable as well. And it would stop at 3/4 of the way down the runway. So it's really not an issue. But I can see how the guy perhaps ducked under a little bit and hit the edge there. And I wonder. I mean, I don't know if that runway has any kind of visual approach path indicator or I don't know. But that would hitting the edge of the runway that way would certainly do it.
Well, see.
I've got a question, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't you sometimes work into airfields that are, what is the term, unmanned? So you turn the lights on yourself using radio and municipal ones, and there's no fire coverage there, isn't there? I mean, they may be in the local town, but there's none on the
There has to be some kind of capability, a minimum capability, or else we would not operate. Even when the tower's not operating, there's usually firefighting, air rescue firefighting
on the airfield.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's one of those airports was Huntsville. Actually, we would operate out of there, middle of the night, both on leaving and arriving, and we would turn on the runway lights and approach lights and all that stuff that way with by keying the mic. And it was funny. You would make the your standard general aviation radio calls, but you were flying a 747, so it's but it's exactly as Jeff says. The rescue and firefighting equipment is on the field and it has to be available. Now I think in some airfields when the tower is closed And even though the rescue and firefighting services are there, the classification actually goes down because response time goes down.
Yeah, I think they have to respond like within 3 hours or something.
Hopefully.
Something like that. Something
You know,
under
the next
that.
day when they get around
Or
to
8
it.
hours. I don't know. I get confused.
Whenever they wake up in the morning. Well, looks like there was an incident. Let's head down to the airport.
Yeah.
What's
No,
that
but
smoke over there?
What's that funny
RFFS is
smell?
on the field. Absolutely.
And so, Rick, for your convenience, I put that picture back up of Google Earth and the runway there. So if you could tell us whether or not you can see any pappies on there, that would answer that question.
Actually, I not only do I see pappies, but I see vassies, and they're co-located. So,
Oh, there you go.
You know, very,
All right.
very modern.
Just trying to be helpful.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Sure. You know me, trying to be ever helpful. All right. That's all we can say about that Djibouti. C. An Air Sangha de Havilland DHC 6300 registration Papa 2 Alpha Mike Sierra performing a flight from unknown point of origin to unknown point of destination in Papua New Guinea. That, I swear that's what it says. I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
Very specific.
And very yeah. It was flying somewhere down there in Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea.
Yes, it was operating at the Wobagan Airport in the Western Province, but went off the runway. The nose gear collapsed. And Liz, if you'll show there, look at that.
Oh,
Oh, that is sad, isn't it?
sad twin otter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Papua New Guinea's AIC reported information provided. The AIC indicates that as a result of the occurrence, a child resulted injured and the aircraft sustained damage. Child was later airlifted to a hospital in Kiunga to receive medical attention. That's a shame that a child was injured in this accident.
Yeah, that is sad.
Says just
That's
says they were
all.
operating at this airport. Doesn't say whether they were arriving or departing.
That's all the information we have. Very, as Liz says, yes, very sketchy on the facts. So, Liz, next time, would you try to give us more facts?
Well, I did look up this particular airstrip in Papua New Guinea. It's, speaking of short runways, 1,969 feet by 98 feet wide, and it looks like the,
So that's
and it's at an elevation of 6,000 feet.
My goodness.
So you're so you're landing
Yeah,
on a
high and
postage
short.
stamp basically. Yeah.
That is some of the hardest flying, I think, in the
Oh
world.
yeah. Absolutely.
down there.
I mean, I have nothing but respect for guys and gals that do that kind of flying, you know, and you know, cutting their teeth out there, getting that flight experience. And I tell you, I mean, as heavy aircraft drivers and you know jet airliner drivers, it's just the easy end of the job. It's getting here. That's the hard part for some of these you know, young and upcoming pilots, and it's tough. I mean, the hardest thing I ever did was really pales in comparison to a lot of the flying that these people do, and I just find it amazing.
Have you ever seen
yeah.
the YouTube channel? I think it's called Missionary Pilot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
all this kind of flying down there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like, whoa! I'd never do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
Twin
it's-
Otter's
it's
perfect
real
for that,
bush
but
flying, isn't it?
yeah, it's still it's still a
Minimal
lot going on.
aids, often really weird conditions, and the weather out there hot and humid, but often very steamy and cloudy. And of course, there's added health problems in a place like PNG. It's got one of the highest malarial rates in the world. So if you're living and working out there, you've really got to look after yourself.
No, absolutely. I remember, you know, a lot of times we'll get guys and gals that come over to our airline with this kind of experience. Not immediately after leaving this kind of flying, but after a couple of years, they'll come on with our outfit, and it's you know, they click the autopilot off, and man, I tell you, that is some handling. They can fly that.
They
thing
probably
like-
have serious hand flying skills from
yeah,
doing all
it's-
that stuff.
It's unbelievable, unbelievable. You know, so it's,
Speaking of
nothing but
serious
respect.
hand flying skills, I don't mean to scare you at all, Nick, but there's an airplane flying very close to your head. Looks like some kind of a bush airplane or something.
Yeah, I know. You keep
Yeah.
skimming the back of my hair, actually.
It's a close call. Looks like
It is. It's,
Thought you needed a haircut with that.
perhaps I need to
Prop
sit
there.
down a bit. There you go. How's that?
okay. If you want to know what we're talking about, you'll have to look a little bit at the at the video.
I've got
see
new
the-
toy, you see. I've got new toy to play with.
That's always fun. Okay. That's about it for that one until we get more information about what the heck was going on. Item D, another accident. Calm Air Aviation de Transport Regional. Okay, somebody help me out. Calm Air,
Avion
and they were flying an
Okay.
ATR.
Aviation Regional Transport.
transport.
Yeah, just ATR. ATR works.
Come on, Steph, give us your best French
I just did
accent.
Avion de Transport Regional. I probably screwed that
Very
one
good.
up.
Fair enough.
ATR 42-300 registration.
There's,
Charlie
French, there's
LA.
French speakers in the chat room. They'll tell me how terrible it was.
Oh, okay. Well, they always do. Charlie Foxtrot Alpha Foxtrot Sierra, performing freight flight 464 from Rankin Inlet, NU to New Brunswick. Oh, the Nunavut Territory. Oh, okay. Thank you. Our resident Canadian is telling me in my ear what that is. To another place in that territory, with 3 crew on what? Najat. With 3 crew on board, landed on Najat's former Repulse Bay's runway 34, 3,400 feet long, at about 13:24 local time, but veered right off the runway and came to a stop with all gear off the runway on soft ground. There were no injuries. The aircraft sustained substantial damage. The airline reported at about 1:30 local time today a cargo flight operated by Calm Air left the runway. No passengers were on board, and the crew are receiving medical evaluations. Calm Air has informed Transport Canada and the Transportation Safety Board of the incident. And looking at the weather here, it doesn't look like it was too bad. I mean, it's cold, obviously, minus 23. Yeah, that's chilly. But high scattered clouds at 15,000 feet. Winds don't look like they were, bad at all. So, I don't know.
Wonder about the runway condition.
Does it have that on here? I don't think so.
No icons on this. So yeah, didn't see any.
Probably looks a little maybe covered with snow and ice.
Just based on what the picture looks like, if that's fairly recent after the incident occurred, looks snowy,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
icy.
So that's probably what happened. Just a slick runway, and then just went sliding off of it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we know about that one.
It's interesting, but before we move on from this one, I mean, I don't know if it's something that you guys have done in your specific operations when flying with either severe crosswinds or when conditions are very, very icy outside. At least it was the way we do it. So you got to be very, very careful with the application of reverse thrust, because some airplanes reverse thrust is actuated hydraulically, and some airplanes it's actuated pneumatically. And so you want to make sure that when reverse thrust comes on, you apply them symmetrically, and really the deployment has to be symmetric. You got to make sure that they're both deployed before you actually rev the engines up in reverse thrust, because if the field conditions are less than optimum, something like this can happen. I'm not saying that this is what happened, but you got to be really, really careful when it comes to application of reverse thrust in icy conditions.
We never had to worry about that on the Mad Dog at all.
Yeah, I
don't
know.
have any problems with
No problem.
that. New York City, LaGuardia.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. Technical pause. Rick, make sure your gain's turned all the way up on your Motu. That little gain button.
Yep. Let me see here.
Gain all the way clockwise?
Yep. Gains all the way up.
Okay, good. All right. Just for some reason, it was a little bit lower volume than everybody else.
Okay. How's that? That
Okay.
good?
But I can fix it in post.
All
We're
right.
good. All right. And let's move on. I don't know. Have you all ever seen an impressive zipper merge? Well,
I mean, that's
hang
what I
around
do
me.
on the highway every day.
Hang around me and you'll see an impressive zipper merge. A light aircraft makes a nighttime landing on U.S. highway. And let's see, before you play the video, Liz, let's set it up a little bit. A light aircraft has made a dramatic emergency landing on an interstate as cars cruise down the highway at night. Video footage posted on Twitter by the Minnesota Department of Transportation showed the pilot touchdown while traveling at the same speed. And I put in there, well, it's pretty close. I think he was going a little bit faster than the traffic as vehicles ahead and behind. The single propeller plane appeared to have suffered an engine failure, the Ramsey County Deputies Federation said on Facebook, alongside images of the craft smashed into the hood of an SUV. No one was injured in the accident on Wednesday night on Interstate 35 West, a major highway in the Minneapolis area city of Arden Hills. The road was blocked for several hours, but reopened to traffic on Thursday morning. They added the pilot was cited for improper lane change and not using his turn signal.
No,
yeah, that and
surely
he
they're
didn't
just
pay
being
didn't pay the toll either. So
So go
pilots
ahead.
are the worst.
seriously,
It's only like 75
Can't
cents.
you use hand signals?
Yeah, I don't know. See, I can't see his
Hand
hand. I don't think his
signals
hand's out the window. And he touches down. And now he's going to
The
get.
guardrail
There's
there.
the illegal lane change and pass.
Smack.
Oh, yeah, he hit the car right
He
there.
so nearly got away with it.
Yeah.
yeah, he almost did.
You want to play it one more time? Yeah. Here we go. It's great footage, though. Look at that.
Yeah.
I tell you, had that
Yeah,
car
perfect.
not been there, he would have been
been-
fine.
Yeah.
I know.
But there's
I'd say it's the
always
car's
that car,
fault.
always that one car.
Yeah. it's- Damn
All right,
cars.
that was
Getting in the
impressive.
way of us airplane drivers.
No, how dare they?
I know you'd appreciated that, Liz, that impressive zipper merge. Let's see here. We got a couple other pictures I'll share with you here. There is the SUV that it ended up hitting, and let's see. I think there's another view of the front end of the airplane. So this doesn't look like a heck of a lot of damage, but I don't know. That's probably total.
I mean, the prop is
The
bent, which
prop's all
means that
bent.
the engine's completely done. So, oh man,
Yeah.
it's,
It's going to take some. Yeah.
You're talking a nice
was a-
chunk of change to get that thing airworthy again.
I'll bet. Anyway, it's pretty impressive. I'm glad that they had the security camera was right there because we got to look at it and go, ooh, nice, impressive. Yes, cameras are everywhere these days, Liz
They
says.
really are.
Okay.
Good job of avoiding all those, just the light posts, though. He was
Oh, yeah.
trying to line up and
You're-
steer clear of those. And yeah.
So have you ever had issues with that when you were landing on highways stuff?
All the time. It's
All
pesky.
the time.
It's pesky light poles and power lines and bridges. and
Overpasses.
overpasses. Yeah.
Pesky, yeah.
Yeah. Makes the zipper merge a little tricky. So, no, fortunately, knock on wood, not ever had that situation.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
Yeah, me neither. Thank goodness.
All right, moving on. 5. Final report. No, not 5. F. Final report. Incident. Scoot. Boeing 787-900 registration 9 Victor Oscar Juliet Echo performing flight 16 from Singapore to Perth, Australia, Western Australia, with 356 passengers and 11 crew, was descending towards Perth when the right-hand engine, a Trent 1000, shut down without command. The crew continued the approach for a safe landing on Perth's runway 21. The return flight was canceled. The passengers were rebooked onto other flights. I wonder why they canceled the next flight. While descending into Perth, there was an uncommanded in-flight shutdown of the engine, according to Australia's TSB. Flight crew continued their... This is the same thing I just read. Okay. On December 1st, 2020, the Australian Transportation Safety Board released their final report, concluding the probable causes of the incident were... Following a series of status and alert messages related to the aircraft's right engine, the engine shut down during descent. The flight crew followed the appropriate procedures and landed the aircraft safely using the operational engine. The engine shutdown was a result of insufficient fuel delivery due to low pressure in the fuel metering valve servo assembly, as debris from worn fuel pump bearings had blocked its inlet filter. The engine manufacturer, Rolls-Royce, identified that between late 2018 and early 2019, the operator's fleet of 787 aircraft were particularly susceptible to low life wear in the journal bearings of the secondary high-pressure fuel pump. So what they did, I'll try to summarize this a little bit. They started, comparing other airlines operating this same engine and in the same kind of geographic area and same sort of short flights and that kind of thing. And they didn't see any. They didn't see any like issues with other companies, and they did a lot of research on this, trying to figure out why it seemed to be only happening to Scoot Air's 787s. They looked at the manufacturing date and manufacturing run of these hydromechanical units and fuel flow servos and that kind of thing, and they were like not in any one particular lot, and other airlines that had the same type of part, same date, same run, didn't have any issues with them either. And so they replaced the fuel metering servo, and then I think on another flight after this incident flight with no passengers or cargo, they were flying a non-revenue flight, was conducted to return the aircraft to Singapore, during which time the electronic engine controller was replaced, and then the aircraft returned to revenue service. Let's see, and then they ended up replacing a whole bunch of other parts because they ended up getting some maintenance messages indicating similar issues to the occurrence flight. So they replaced the HMU another time, fuel pump, high and low pressure fuel filters, left and right variable stator vane actuator. So the bottom line, I read through this whole thing, and they, as I said, they did a lot of research to see if they could figure out exactly what happened in this situation. And the conclusion is they have no idea.
Yeah. No, it's and we have another piece of feedback here about a similar aircraft with an engine issue, and that's the beauty about these 777s and 787s is that there's a system on board called the TAC, the Thrust Asymmetry Compensation System, or Thrust Asymmetry Computer. And so what this system does is it constantly compares at least on Pratt & Whitney and GE engines, which is what I've flown, it constantly compares the rotational velocity of your low pressure compressor, so your N1. So anytime there's more than a 10% delta, 10% difference between right and left, the rudder will automatically come in and compensate for that dissimilar thrust. Another interesting thing about 777s and 787s is that the auto throttle system is independent. So you have an auto throttle system for the left engine and one for the right engine. So you can do basically auto lands, category 3, fail passive auto lands, just on a single engine, because the auto throttle controls each engine separately. So that is really flying around single engine in one of these. It's really a non-issue. You just let the TAC take over, and you just land normally. Now, the one difference in the TAC between the 777 and the 787 is that it's the way the TAC behaves on the ground. So on the 777, if an engine fails on the takeoff run, the TAC will only apply enough rudder to help the pilot identify which engine has failed, whereas in the 787, the rudder will go in all the way to compensate for that dissimilar thrust. So it'll actually keep the airplane going straight with the engine failed at takeoff thrust. Now, a lot of the question that a lot of times I get is that what happens if the TAC fails? Well, actually on the type rating ride for both the 777 and the 787, what they do is they'll give you a severe damage or separation. So basically, they'll blow the engine off the wing, and at that point, the TAC disconnects itself, because remember, the TAC uses the comparison in N1 deltas to see how much. Oh, there you go. To see how much rudder is required. So if the engine blows off the wing, there's no more comparison. So the tag goes, well, I don't know what's going on, so you're on your own. So you actually have to put in the rudder in by yourself there, which is no big deal either because the rudder on the 777 and the 787 are very, very powerful. So on the 777 even more so because the lower part of the rudder is actually double hinged because each engine puts out 115,000 pounds of thrust, at least in the G90s that I've flown. So dissimilar thrust can be an issue if you let it. But
Hold
this,
on to that.
Flying around single engine on a 787, no big deal.
We're going to talk about single engine on a 777 here
Yes,
in
we
a
will.
couple news items
That's right.
from now. Good point. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of odd that after all of this, they weren't able to figure out why these journal bearings were wearing just on Scoot Air's fleet of 787s and nobody else's. Just kind of weird.
Yeah, it does seem a bit weird, doesn't it, Jeff? I'm just wondering if there were maintenance routines that Scoot had that were different.
They
but
did.
I'm sure
They actually
would have
did
looked
say
at
on
that.
here that they looked at all that, including maintenance procedures and everything else, and they said nothing was really that much different from anybody
Now,
else's.
isn't Scoot Airlines
Yeah.
I guess the short haul airline for because I believe isn't it part of Singapore Airlines? I think.
Yeah,
I'm not-
they're the low-cost airline, which is a subsidiary of Singapore Airlines.
So do they do a lot more short hop type stuff or?
I would assume so, but
Yeah.
this wasn't short hop.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You know, from Singapore to Perth. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's
Well, I
considered in the
mean,
long haul world as a short flight from Singapore to Perth.
Singapore to Perth is not, it's not
that
exactly
far.
It's not that far. I mean, it's a couple hours, but it's not,
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I don't. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. I don't know if that's an issue or not.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I think they said they compared it with other airlines that operate the airplane in kind of those short distances as well, and they still couldn't come up with any reason why these particular fuel metering valves were getting gummed up more quickly than anybody else's. So, anyway, hopefully, they won't have this issue anymore. But they were aware of it, and that's basically the bottom line.
Yeah, Kaya here says that she knows Scoot. They were one of her customers at Panasonic Avionics when she used to work there, and she says, "Yep, it's part of Singapore Air." So,
Okay.
yep.
Very good. Very good.
Owen says that's definitely not short haul.
Yeah.
He probably gets has to do three meals, 3 courses.
I don't know. How
Lots
long
of
would that
wine.
flight be, I wonder, from Singapore to
Perth to Singapore.
Right, 5 or 6 hours, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I'll see here.
Well-
but,
Worse going home, so up to Singapore as you're heading into the subtropical jet. But
One of the mysteries of aviation life. Yeah. Thank you, Liz. All right. Item G. This is a fun one. During the weekend, and this is from is it a Twitter account, I think, from JACDEC, Jacdec, whatever that stands for. An Airbus A320neo of Vistara got into a beat of trouble. Oh, they're trying to be clever. A swarm of bees attacked the aircraft and couldn't be humanely removed. The Kolkata's International Airport authorities had to deploy a fire truck to get one-on-one with the flying swarm of bugs. And we have some video. Yeah, they did have a working fire truck at this airport, at least one, which we'll see here in the video. So, it's noisy. It's an airport, of course. You're expecting it to be noisy. I'll turn the volume down a little bit because it's not critical that we really hear the jet noise in these videos. So there's a big, huge clump of bees on the very front right side of the aircraft, just aft of the bar one door. And then they're using the fire truck with water. Kind of nice and gentle. I mean, they didn't use
चलो नहाना हो गया आज प्लेन का আরে ওখানে মধুমক্ষীটা আছে, মেয়ে মধুমক্ষীরা।
So, wow, lots of bees. I was expecting to hear some screams of bees stinging humans on that, but
I think they're
I
all
didn't
too
hear any.
busy doing
Fortunately,
the breaststroke.
Yeah,
What's going
did you hear Liz at all? Or was it just me?
No, it's just you.
It was
Just you.
she was saying it was interesting that in India that they they venerate a lot of animals like cows and that kind of stuff, and perhaps they venerate or whatever protect other forms of life like bees, because it was, although they did say here at the very beginning of this article that they tried to find a way to remove these bees humanely, but then they had to revert to deploying a
Well,
fire
the
truck.
usual thing is to get a bee handler to come along, and they
Yeah.
find the queen, which is what this swarm will be following. And because bee swarms are quite valuable, they usually make an effort to get them all into a box and take them away. It seems a bit... because, I mean, bees can't really survive a huge downpour like that. They'll probably mostly get die as a result of that.
Well, it said, later in this article, it says that you would think that this event only happened once during the day, but no. According to the Times of India, another Vistara aircraft was surrounded by bees on Monday. The aircraft, another 320neo. Let's see, what they have in common is that both airplanes were parked around the same place, Bay 25. Unlike the first incident, the second bee attack wasn't recorded and posted on social media. Additionally, no one was hurt, well, except for the bees. None of the planes had passengers when the bees swarmed them. According to the airport director of the airport, on both occasions, fire brigade personnel sprayed water from water cannons on the swarm of bees to drive them away. Following the back-to-back incidents, a team of officials from Kolkata Airport searched the area and sprayed insecticide in the surrounding places. However, even after an extensive search, no beehives were spotted in the zone. So, I don't know.
Well, they can swarm quite a distance, I think, when they decide to spread out. The new
They didn't
queen
look hard
heads
enough, you're
off
saying?
and- yeah, they can go quite a long way.
Okay.
And
Why
then
they
all
chose
send
an
out-
Airbus,
They send a
must-
text message to all the bees, and the bees come back to the
Yeah,
predetermined
that's
meeting
exactly
spot.
right. Yep.
Yes.
That must be a very attractive airplane, that Airbus.
Oh.
At least to bees.
Yes.
It took 4.5 hours and the help of a beekeeper, but the flight eventually took off. This is an incident in 2017 in New York at JFK. A similar situation occurred, but they deplaned the passengers and they ended up getting a beekeeper to come in and take care of the situation.
Yeah, they're very sweet, those Airbuses, I hear.
They must be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I thought that was kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Well, not really a good one, but a happy ending. A Japan Airlines 777-200 registration JA8978 performing flight 904 from Okinawa to Tokyo Haneda with 178 passengers and 11 crew was climbing out of Okinawa when the left-hand engine, a Pratt & Whitney 4084, failed and its access doors ripped off with huge noises, prompting the crew to stop the climb at flight level 190 and return to Okinawa for a safe landing about 35 minutes after departure. The aircraft stopped on the runway and was subsequently towed to the apron. The Japan's Ministry of Transport rated the occurrence a serious incident, I'd say. Japan's TSB have dispatched investigators on site and opened an investigation. The ministry reported one of the fan blades of the left-hand engine was damaged at the root. Passengers reported there was a bang and a sudden noise. The captain subsequently announced the left-hand engine had suffered damage, and they were returning to from their liftoff point in Okinawa on one engine only. And there is a YouTube video here, and I ended up taking out it was like a more than 7 minute video, and I kind of reduced it down to about 3.5 minutes. So, Liz, if you'll play that for us.
「
And if you guys want to make any comments, you can unmute your mics.
V1.
Rotate. We're looking at nice hangars out the window. The video's been taken from the right forward portion of the 777 cabin. Nice view of the Okinawa airport below. And I don't think the person filming this caught the actual moment where the engine exploded, because it kind of jumps to this segment where the flight attendant is making a PA, telling people not to freak out, not to panic.
Please stop shaking the airplane.
Yeah, the airplane is shaking pretty violently. I think we can hear her say something about vibration. Vibration.
Yeah.
Looks like the good engine out the right side there, doing its
That's
job.
a good one.
Yep. And then now I kind of fast forwarded to the point where the captain comes on and makes a PA. I do not speak Japanese, so I have no idea what he's saying. Steph, yeah, Liz says Steph can translate this. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a
This
slight
is your
problem.
captain speaking. As you may have noticed, we have a small technical issue, which we will be returning as a precautionary measure to Okinawa. That's what it is.
Perfect. That's exactly what he said. Thank you, Steph. Look at the shaking here on the inside.
Yeah.
Like a washing machine, that has the load is unbalanced.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Except for it's a lot bigger than a washing machine.
And at this point, that's just the engine, just windmilling. It's just obviously the engine is off at this point.
Right.
So by this time, they've obviously gone through all the emergency procedures, shut the engine down. They have the APU running, so they have that generator going. Obviously, the good engine's running. So, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the thrust symmetry compensation system, it just takes care of the rest. You just does a fantastic job for you. It takes all the guesswork out of flying a single engine.
Like magic.
Yeah.
And then here we go. We're coming to a stop on the runway. Looks like you're right on the center line.
Yep. Only way to go.
Yep, they do have working fire trucks here at this airport, Liz.
Yeah.
I saw a couple as we were about to land. You could see them on the one of the reverse high speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so job well done and well handled
absolutely.
by that crew.
The only cool thing about these 777s and 787s is that they have what's called the EFB, the electronic, not the EFB, the electronic checklist, ECL.
I have one of those.
So
right here.
yeah, so as you go, when a problem presents itself, the system will sense that, and it'll present you with the appropriate checklist. And obviously, you have to make sure that's the checklist that applies. And if it is, you start going down the checklist. You click on each item. And as you accomplish each part of the checklist, if it's something that the system can sense, so on the 777 you have what's called open loop items and closed loop items. So closed loop items are items which the aircraft can sense through its logic. So the position of a switch, or a temperature, or a position of a flight control surface, or something like that. And an open loop item is something that you have to tell the system that you've done. It just takes all the guesswork out of doing checklists.
So is a missing can foul open? Can foul.
Can foul?
Yeah.
Fan
I don't know
cowl.
what can foul is, but
An open loop or a closed loop?
An open fan cowl. I mean, I tell you, a missing compressor blade is certainly It's got to be an open loop. but just going down the checklist item by item really takes all the guesswork out of it. Because going back to older airplanes where you actually have to pull out the checklist and read the checklist very, very carefully, and it's very easy to get to these points where the checklist you get to a fork in the road, and you have to make sure you go down the right one, because if you go down the wrong one, you can end up with a completely new set of problems that are completely unrelated to the problem at hand.
I
And
can
you
actually
end up-
see
a new
the
emergency.
problem with this engine. There's a bloke in it.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And a big hole behind those inlet guide vanes. Or
Well, that's
those
how we
fan
got
pipes.
in, obviously.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, but like I said, these flying single engine in one of these things is no big deal at all.
No big deal. Whatever. Why are we even
Big
talking
engines, aren't they? Big engines.
Oh yeah, size of a 737.
Huge. All right. Well, as I said, job well done by the professional pilots and flight attendants at Japan Airlines. And finally, we have this in military news in Australia. Let's see. 2 pilots have been... You know what would be better? Well, let's just play the video, because I think they do a pretty good job of explaining.
2 pilots slam into the ground almost in unison. Their now unmanned jet rolls off the runway and digs into a ditch. This is a rare glimpse into an unfolding Air Force emergency involving our nation's premier fighter jet.
This is a sophisticated piece of machinery, and it's an incident that's occurred at one of the most critical points or phases of flight.
It's the first time Australian Air Force pilots have been captured ejecting from an aircraft. They survived what was a high-risk on-land ejection.
They were assessed by medical immediately after the incident and now reported as being well.
With the immediate emergency over, focus now shifts to the investigation. A specialist team flown in to begin work. What we know is that at around 2:30 p.m, Super Hornet number A44223 was third in a line of 7 aircraft to take off from Amberley, loaded and with external fuel tanks. Full power was applied, but 300 metres down the runway, a malfunction occurred, possibly an engine failure. The rocket-propelled ejection system was triggered, sending the 2 pilots shooting into the air. Former fighter pilot Chris Mills has flown the aircraft in question.
The accident rate of the RWS Hornet operations are remarkable in the low loss rates that they've had.
He believes a double engine failure forced the quick call to eject.
I've never seen an accident like this one where the pilots have jumped out, the aircraft is still rolling and comes to a stop.
Until the answers come, 24 Super Hornets have been grounded, along with 11 Growler jet fighters that share the same engine.
We have grounded the Growler and also the Super Hornet fleet for an abundance of caution.
Throughout the day, very little activity has occurred around the damaged aircraft itself, but this $75 million Super Hornet will be subject to extreme scrutiny, as will the actions of the pilot and everyone involved in trying to keep it in the air.
This needs to undergo a suitable level of investigation to get the right answers so that we can provide the right solutions.
It's too early to tell whether the aircraft can be repaired, and on its last flight, only the air crew got off the ground. Tonight there is no indication of how long that Super Hornet will remain out there on the tarmac, but they have just erected some portaloos next to it, so that gives you some idea of how long they intend to be pouring over that wreckage. There's also no time frame on the grounding of the Super Hornet and Growler fleet. The Air Force saying they will be meticulous with this investigation and ensure that if there are any issues with the aircraft, they will be rectified before returning to service. The investigation will also be closely watched by other nations that operate these aircraft. Primarily that will be the US. They have more than 600 Super Hornets in their Navy and Air Force fleet.
I have like a lot of questions
Go on then.
on this.
What are your questions, Captain Johnson?
Well, I mean, was an ejection necessary in this situation? I mean, I wasn't there.
I don't know. They jumped out pretty quick. If it looked like they were going off the runway, they probably would, because if the engine's got no power, the aircraft's got no power, it's not going anywhere. They can't do much with it if if they've lost all their systems, and if they're sliding off the runway, potentially ditches in front of them, they weren't to know that the aircraft would trundle into the ditches at low speed. It might have gone in there much faster, and the aircraft could have broken up. They could have been quite badly injured. Having said that, yeah, no one ejects lightly. We all know that you're quite likely to end up injured, even on a very straightforward ejection. So, yeah, it's not an easy decision, I'm sure. By the way, Mel Hupfield, the senior RAAF officer, I first met him within days of arriving in Australia, when he came round dressed as a workman and claimed he was there to defumigate our house that we'd just moved into to get rid of the bugs. He said, "I'm the bug man, we're here to fix your house." And he spent the entire afternoon. He claimed we couldn't go into the house, spent the entire afternoon there, and all he kept doing was asking for beer. "You got another beer, mate?" And
Did he drink all of your beers that afternoon?
Yeah. He was there as a joke, really, and to see how much beer I'd give him.
Nice.
Seems like it worked.
So the guy that was the official spokesperson, the air marshal or whatever.
Exactly right. Yes.
I guess he wasn't the air marshal back when you were flying there, though, right?
No, he was another flight lieutenant on the other squadron. So they reckoned that I knew most of the 77 guys. So he was on 3 squadron at the time.
That's funny.
That's interesting.
Seems like those Aussies really have a great sense of humor.
They're a funny bunch of guys. Yeah. You're
So,
right.
so Nick, the Hornet doesn't have, because you used to fly, I guess, the A models, right? You had to.
Yeah, the A's and B's, the classics.
Do they not have accumulator brakes or reserve brakes or anything like that, or?
Yeah, they do, but I don't know how bad the damage was. Of course, if they came engine uncontained failure, which perhaps took out the other one, might well have taken out the systems. Not nearly as many backup systems, of course, in something like that. But yeah, they'd have hydraulic brakes backed up by pneumatics from an accumulator. But from memory, the classic Hornet might have still needed hydraulic fluid pressurized by an accumulator. So if you'd taken out the hydraulic pipes and the fluid had gone, you wouldn't have any brakes at all.
Right.
But and you might not have any steering either, because the usual thing would be to stay with the aircraft, steer it down the runway, put the hook down if you were worried about stopping, and then just trundle into the overrun cable. But they might have, some might have said you're on fire, some might have, I don't know. We'll find out perhaps one day. Yeah. But interesting thing about the parachutes, multicolored, because they're used as a survival aid. Whatever country, whatever environment you happen to eject in, you can use a different color of the canopy to make a shelter, and it will either hide you, or you can use it to mark your presence so that rescuers can find you. And Amberley was the base where all the bomber pilots were. They used to have F-111s up there, and that's where these new Hornets have gone to. I think the F-35s are going to my old base down there at Williamtown. So that's where the fighter boys are.
I think they said
regarding... Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, regarding a little side conversation that's going on in the chat room, just the difference between reject as in reject takeoff and eject is not very much. What are the differences in the calls there?
Well, that's one of the reasons in my experience, we use the word stop. Rather than anything else, abort or reject. So, that's a pretty easy call.
Well, first of all, before I forget, we need to be very, very sure that we mention that video that we played was on YouTube, and it was 7 News in Australia, 7news.com.au, to give them credit for that. And then the other thing is, I just can't help but think that after these guys ejected and stood up and looked over to see the wreckage of the airplane and just watching the thing just kind of going just in slow motion, kind of just still rolling, and then it just kind of stops with a nose gear collapse. Thinking,
should have stayed on.
Oh yeah, should mention that Ray Davis sent us in that that article. Thank you, Ray.
And I just wanted to mention that just to keep to keep News 7 above 50%, there are no Super Hornets in the United States Air Force's inventory. They're all Navy and
all
Marine Corps.
Navy, huh? That's true. Yeah. That's true. That's true. Where is that? Okay, I know I have it somewhere. But by the time I play it, it's not going to really be funny at all.
Yeah,
So
I love the way also they work out how long the investigation's going to take by the fact that there's a portaloo.
Well, we set up the mobile toilets, so we're going to be here a while.
You know they're going to be here a while.
Yeah.
I do love that as well.
That was good. That was good.
All
Comedy
right.
gold.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, it's time now to get to know us. Getting to know about you. Getting to like us. Hoping that you'll like us too. See, I do actually know the words. Sometimes.
Did you look them up?
Yeah,
No.
are you the king or the lady in the dress doing that?
Both. It depends on my mood. And this is good because we're going to be able to catch up with Steph before she has to leave for a online meeting that she's required to attend today.
Meeting that is not something I can get out of, so I shall be departing your presence shortly. But yeah, I was actually at Jeff. Before we get into this, did you happen to get video from Armando?
Yeah. Oh, was I supposed? Did he send that to me so we can play it on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't made clear, probably.
Let me see if I can find it. I'm not sure.
Because I didn't think to send it to you until like 20 minutes ago. I went, oh, there's video.
Well, I do recall that he sent me something yesterday, but I don't remember him saying that. I just thought it was just for my own edification, not something that we play on the show. So let me see if I can find it. So go ahead and vamp.
I forgot about it because I'll set up what this is if you can find it. If not, I'll put it in the show notes or something.
Okay.
Because I couldn't remember which day we actually recorded last week, but since we recorded, I did go flying with Armando. For those who listen to the PTUK podcast, they'll know that he also flies skydivers just on the other side of the beautiful city, Queen City of Charlotte, from where I am. Slightly different type of drop zone, though. It's they fly a Cessna 182, and they've got a couple of short-ish grass strips, 2,000 feet roughly, that they use. And I went up there to go fly with him to get checked out in their 182, so in case they ever are in need of a pilot and things work out and, you know, I can fill in for them. We could do that. So, but he wanted me to come up there, get checked out, and then use some airport familiarization because I don't do a lot of grass strip, short, soft field flying. Our runways are 5,000 feet of pavement, which is more than enough for the type of aircraft that we operate. So the video that we have is actually video that Armando took. We went out in their 182. I don't know if you found it yet or not.
I found it, and I'm trying to put it into StreamYard, but it's too big for StreamYard video clips.
A little video clip.
No, I have an alternative way to do this, so keep going. I'll figure it out.
So yeah, so what we did, there's only in that 182, if we do get the video playing, you'll see that a lot of things have been removed for weight purposes. So there's not a lot in the plane. There's one seat for the pilot, and then everyone else sits on the floor and has seatbelts on the floor. So what we did was we just kind of briefed everything, talked through it, what we were going to do in terms of familiarization with the airplane and the airfield itself. So Armando went out and flew first. We did a couple of takeoffs and approaches to the different runways. He did a couple of landings. We worked on getting the door open and closed because it's actually very similar to the 182 at the drop zone where I am, so that wasn't too difficult. And then we came back and went out, and I did the same thing. And then we actually took the drop zone owner on a flight, and he jumped out. So that was fun. So my thanks to Armando for the opportunity to do more flying. It's always fun.
Here's
so
Steph
here we're
being a
working on
backseat flyer.
Well, so yeah, I have a seatbelt on, but I don't really want to be. So you can see that we're both wearing emergency parachute rigs, which have one round main parachute or one round reserve parachute in them. I don't really want to have to use that ever at any point, so I did back up from the door when we opened the door.
Looks like some tall trees there.
Yeah, so this is landing on 1-3, I believe. And so both runways are sloped pretty significantly, and this runway I think is actually 2,400 feet, but it's about 2,000 feet of usable grass because of the tall trees on the end there.
Now somebody's honking their horn.
Yeah, that's the stall horn.
He must be in the way.
Beep, beep, move it. So I think this actually goes
Stall.
on for 4 minutes or so. You could probably fast forward a little bit if you wanted to, but
Okay. Tell me where. Let's see.
yeah.
Now Steph's getting into the seat.
yeah, I'm gonna fly.
Takes
So taking
off,
off there.
flying very
Whee!
fast.
Yes. So
Somebody
We're working on the
keeps
door.
opening up the door, and then somebody keeps closing it.
So the way you close the door is full left rudder, and it takes it out of the airstream there
Slipstream.
and allows it to slipstream.
Wow.
And falls down, and then it's just got a little latch on the side.
Shall I continue fast
Yeah, so this is my.
forwarding, or-
Actually, you can play here. This is my landing
Okay.
on runway 13, which I actually thought was pretty good. So it was actually fairly. We had a crosswind, which kind of dies off as soon as you get down into the trees, but it makes it a little bumpy on the approach.
Ah, somebody beeping at me
Very
again.
nice stuff.
Yep, I know.
Very nice.
And then
Very
you
nice.
can probably fast forward just a tiny bit here because we're going to take the drop zone owner up and let him do a jump before we call it a day.
Okay. Right here
So I had
or
to-
farther
right here.
up?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay.
We'll play this for a moment.
Have you ever heard of baseball caps, Steph?
Yeah, that
That's
would have
very
been
good if the
smart.
sun's in
Also,
your
also
eyes.
sunglasses. Neither one of us had sunglasses that day. I don't know what we were thinking. I actually forgot mine at home that morning.
Must be
I
something
went to
you
work
said
before this.
that upset him because he's leaving the airplane.
Yeah, it just seems to happen on a lot of aircraft that I fly.
It's like,
People
I'm out.
Oh, look at
get
that.
out.
Oh, he's an
he's-
old man.
He flipped the bird at you. Wow. He was really upset. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't do that.
So
And then they're going, hey, where did he go? I don't know. Let's look for him. Let's see if we can hit him.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
How
it.
did
and
this
then
landing
more-
go?
I was flew a little high on this one, to be honest. It's gonna be critical.
You're landing on a golf course, it looks like.
Yes. So kind of stopped flying right about there. Bump.
There it is.
Very nice.
Found it.
Wow, stops quick.
Yeah, you really don't need much of that 2,000 feet of grass going uphill. I'll tell you what.
Oh, and then you
Nice.
hit that other airplane with your right wing.
Exactly.
That's not good.
So,
Oh, porta potty.
Yep. Gonna be there a while, I guess.
No.
All right. We figured out how to play it. Sorry, I
Very
didn't have it all
good.
set
Steph,
up.
that great
Yeah,
fun.
that was fun.
Someone who actually did some flying.
I
Wow.
know, right? But
I
anyway,
think so. No.
that was the
I didn't.
big, exciting, fun stuff since the last time we did a show. And beyond that, not much else going on, just the usual. More
Very
work
good.
today.
Work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you, Steph. I guess we'll
Yeah.
move on to the next contestant in the Getting to Know Us show. And that would be, let's do Rick.
Hey, so what have I been doing? So I got back from work on Saturday. Before that, I did an entire week of just flying the sort. So basically, you fly from some base out in the network back to Cincinnati, and then you sit through the I guess the wee hours of the morning while they unload the aircraft and reload the aircraft, and then you head back out to your outstation. So did a couple of those between Houston and Cincinnati. First flight to Houston was a little interesting because I was supposed to meet up with Jeff in Houston to go get a little bit of food, but then I found out later after I landed that I was actually flying the sort that evening, so I was going to need a little bit of rest. So basically, we'd fly into Houston in the morning, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, spend the day in Houston, fly back out to Cincinnati, get to Cincinnati about 2 in the morning, and then head right back out to Houston about 6 in the morning. So did that a couple of times. Had to deal with a little bit of weather going into Houston that first morning. Sorry. The TAF, so the area forecast, the terminal area forecast was clear in the middle and everything was going to be great. start getting the ATIS via ACARS, so the conditions on the field via ACARS, and I start seeing that the weather is well, it was like, where's this weather coming from? And by the time we get in there were aircraft in front of us reporting a low-level wind shear, a gain of 15 knots, a loss of 15 knots, short final, and downdrafts and all that. So that kind of happened to us as well. So I was telling my FO, well, it's a good thing it was my leg, because I was like, I'm definitely taking this one. So you do what you do. You pad your airspeed a little bit. You go in with the lower flap setting in case you need to go around. And if you do go around, you obviously make sure that you brief that. And the interesting thing about going around, if you ever hit wind shear, is that unlike any other type of go around, the second you go around after wind shear, you leave the aircraft the way it is. So basically, you don't change the configuration of the plane. You just leave it the way it is, and you just fly away from the ground until wind shear is no longer an issue, and then you come back around and land again. But thankfully there was no issue. We didn't have to go around with land it, and then the trip after that was fine. After doing all this sort flying for the week, got home on Saturday, and then
So you said you're sort of flying? I don't understand.
This sort type
Oh,
flying.
gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood.
got back into Phoenix, and then we decided to go out and get a 4x4. So we Kai and I went over and we traded in a car we had, and we went over and got a 4x4 car. We were looking at a Jeep for a while there, but the thing is that we have 2 big German Shepherds here, and the whole point of having this car is so that we could, do the drive out to California where Kai's parents are, and take the dogs with us. And so it has to be something that is big enough for these guys. And so we went out and got that. And then yesterday we took the car out to a few trails down here and tested it out. So it was nice. So did that. And now the car's full of dog hair and dog slobber, so that's great.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so that's basically been my week. I'll be here till Saturday. Head back out on Saturday to begin a trip on Monday, all the way to the 24th. So I'll be out till Christmas Eve. So doing a little bit of a flying, and then that'll be it for the year. See what happens. See what 2021 has in store.
Excellent. Well, let's move then over to Captain Nick.
Well, hi everybody. Not much really from me. Did that interview I've been talking about for a while with George Lee, 3 times world open gliding champion. Seemed to go very well, so pleased with that. Was just about finished on the plane tail, and of course we got the very sad news that Chuck Yeager had passed away. So put that to one side and restarted a new one. That's kept me pretty busy. Quite honestly, the only break, in fact, was last night when Jeff and I took part in the PT UK Christmas special. So I'm looking forward to seeing. That was just, barely controlled chaos. So I'll be very interested to see how the editing works on that one.
True.
As for me, not much next week, really. I'm honestly just prepping for Christmas. And, of course, I've got a whole bunch of new gear, which I would show you, but I can't get one bit of it working, which is a new link for my camera, my phone. But I can now stream video from my laptop through a wonderful device that Jeff sorted out for me, and put that on the screen. And of course, it's ideal for the online interviews that I sometimes conduct, because you can set up multiple camera views and green screen and all that kind of stuff. So I've been having great fun trying to get all that working. So been a busy week, and the only thing that I've done is upset my wife dreadfully, because every time she would say, you've got 100 Christmas cards to write, and they're still sitting on the table. And I would be, oh, yeah, okay, dear. I'm just trying to get this thing sorted. Yeah, that's right. And I am looking forward to actually Christmas. I hope that the regulations here in the UK allow us to get together, but we're planning to get together with all our family for the few days over Christmas, so that'll be marvellous.
Very
excellent.
Nice. Well, Jeff, I'll have to find out what your week has been like over the
I'll tell
audio
you some other
podcast
time.
or some other time, because I'm going to bid my farewell for now. If the meeting doesn't go too long, perhaps I shall be able to rejoin at
I
some
hope
point.
so.
But sometimes these
We'll
things
still
go
be here.
2 hours, which is really
Hopefully.
but yes. But it was nice talking to y'all. So
Cheers, Steph.
I'll catch you on
Nice
the next
having you
one.
with us.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye, Stephanie.
Well, I've been just feverishly scrambling. When Rick, you said that you were in Houston, or we were going to try to get together in Houston, I'm thinking, oh, that's right. I had a meetup with David Ogden and his son, and I completely forgot about it until you just mentioned it. I'm thinking, oh, crap, I did do some things since the last episode. And I think I found the audio for that. I don't think we did take a picture, and I don't see it on my camera for some reason. I don't know where the heck that went, but I think that this is the audio that I recorded. So fingers crossed, and hopefully this is actually the meetup audio. Not that. I pressed the wrong button. My bad. It's Miami Rick.
I like that song.
Here we go. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I haven't edited it. Don't eat me, Bo Jiden. I'm sorry. I think I have the levels set okay. Yeah. This will be fixed in post. I said, don't eat me, Bo Jiden. Well, it sounded like, yeah. This is a totally different person that I'm talking about. Okay, so 3 pilots walk into a bar. Oh, that's the setup. Now, Craig is going to... All right, so this is the... Shoot. Okay, hang on. Put me back. Yeah, you can do that as well as see the little things underneath the big screen there. When it's... No, not that. Over here, up above all our video thumbnails, you see right now it's in the one and smaller ones off to the side. Right above your video thumbnail, you see that? If you click on the one right to the left of it, don't do that. The one right here to the left, see that one that's selected? That's the one that is the normal view. And then this one right here, whoever's in the upper left-hand corner is the big screen, and the smaller ones is everybody else. So you see what I'm doing? Okay, we'll go over it at some point. We probably shouldn't do it during a live show. But, by the way, we're on a technical break right here. If you're watching the video, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I did with the audio that I recorded. But what day was that, Rick? Was it December 2nd?
That was on...
I don't see it
so, yes.
on my phone. What the heck?
Right now.
Maybe it never recorded. I'm sorry, David Ogden and Cole. Yeah, I met with David and his son, and they picked me up from the hotel on the day after we recorded the last episode. Last episode I was up in Chicago. Yeah, December 2nd was when I was in Houston and couldn't meet up with Rick. Weather was kind of skosh in the morning. It wasn't quite so bad when I came in a few hours later. It was still kind of low ceilings and winds. It was windy, but it wasn't like wind shear kind of windy. And went to the hotel and I contacted David. In fact, David was in the live audience when we were recording our last show, and he said, "Hey, if you're ever in Houston, give me a call. I'll pick you up and I'll take you out to dinner." And then both Rick and I said, "Hey, hello, we're going to be in Houston tomorrow." So we had it all set up, and David is with us right now in our live audience. Hi, David. Sorry,
There's Dave.
I screwed up, I guess, because we didn't do either. Oh, that's why I can't find it. Not a lot. He was there. He was my witness. I only had 2 beers, right, David? Now, the first beer was a 9% alcohol beer, though. I think.
And it was
the
2
second
gallons,
one.
but yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big giant. Boy, everything's bigger in Texas.
Exactly.
Including your headache the next morning. No, I'm just kidding. I did not have too much to drink. It's just because I'm getting old and I'm losing my mind, apparently. So, I'm sorry. So anyway, David had a great time with you and your son and got all caught up with his future plans. He's a 9th grader, I believe, freshman, and learned about, what he had planned for his life at this point anyway, and got all caught up with David as well. The last time that I'd seen David, other than the live chat room in Chicago, was actually physically in Chicago last year, or maybe earlier this year. I don't remember, but it was a while ago. And we had a meetup there in Chicago. Great time. But David lives in the Houston area, and we had he took me over to St. Ambrose, is that right? That's not right. St. Arnold's brewery. It's a good craft brewery in Texas. And we went to their brewery / beer garden, I guess is what they call that. And we had the Christmas ale, which was very, very tasty. And then I had the classic traditional IPA. They had a few different styles of IPA. And the food was great. And of course, as we always say, the conversation was even better. So thank you for picking me up from the hotel, David. And, at first we were just going to meet at the hotel bar. And I'm so glad that he insisted that we go to St. Arnold's beer garden because it was a good time. I hope I have that right. He hasn't said anything in opposition to any of that. So we're good. Now, that was day 2 of the trip. And then the last day went from Houston to Atlanta, and then our penalty lap or victory lap, depending on your point of view and your mood, was up to Columbus, Ohio and back. And I have to say, very, very disappointed that I know I have listeners, or we have listeners up in Columbus, Ohio, and especially one who supposedly works at the Port Columbus Airport, but who loves has a thing about stair trucks, and she wasn't there. She wasn't there to greet me with a hot cup of coffee or anything. I'm not sure you could actually,
or even a stair
or even a stair truck. Salute, nothing.
Oh man, absolutely
What's
nothing.
Going on?
Well, it turns out that I guess she is still working from home. She's not actually working out there. That's her excuse anyway.
Okay.
How can you drive a stair truck
she can do it.
from
She
home?
has special permits. Anyway, so yeah, she happens to be Jen Niffer in our live audience. Who, me? Anyway, I was just fooling around. I knew that she wasn't going to be there, and we were only there for a short time anyway. And really, it's nothing is open in the terminal anyway, so we probably couldn't have found any coffee. But then made it home. Got home early afternoon on that Thursday. And then I was right, St. Arnold's. Thank you, David. It was St. Arnold's. And let's see. Then I got a text I think it was, yes. I noticed that one of our APG community members, Captain Craig, was going to be flying through Atlanta on Thursday when I was about the time that I was coming back in from Columbus, Ohio. And so I just hung out there for a little bit after our last flight and met up with Craig and walked with him from his gate in the A concourse over to the D concourse and got a little bit caught up with him. And then the next day, I got a text from Captain Craig that said, "Hey, I'm laying over in Atlanta. You want to get together?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun." And so I said, let's make sure that Mike Carroll's Flying and Life host joins us as well if he's available. And he was. And so Mike picked up Craig from his hotel, and we met at a place in Hapeville, which is basically right there at the airport, north side of the airport. And we had a little meetup there at the Corner Tavern, which I'd never known existed, and it was really good beer, good food. And now I did take or use my phone and recorded some audio of our little encounter. Now, we heard the very beginning of that, so I'm not going to play it from the beginning. I'm hoping that if I just hit this shortcut key that it will resume playing. So let's see what happens. Tell us the punchline.
I lost it. I'm sorry. I'm not good with it either.
I wasn't very good at setting this whole thing up. Anyway, 3 pilots in a bar in Hapeville, the hometown of Jeff Foxworthy, the comedian. And having a great time. The 3 of us here, BFFs, and there's a lot of people listening to the show have no idea what I'm talking about, but the BFFs know what we're talking about. Anyway, we are here in what's the name of this place? Corner Tavern. Thank you. Okay, they're pointing. Thank you. Corner Tavern, Atlanta, and Captain Craig came in for a layover and said, "Hey, if you want to get together, let's get together and do something." I'm down here at the airport, the ATL, and so it's a Saturday night, and apparently Mike and I don't really have much of a life because we were available. So here we are, and we're having a great time. So now Craig is going to say something really, I don't know. It's gonna be the kind of thing where you're going to sit back and think, "Wow, that was something that he just said." Yeah, here we go.
Jeff setting the bar really high for me, and I failed on that one, so I apologize, everybody. But I hope you're all doing well, having a good time with Jeff and Mike here. It's been a fun day so far, long day. Started with the first leg line check, Columbia at Atlanta, and then did 2 Hilton Head turns, so it's been a long day, but it's been beautiful weather, so that always makes life easy, and a good FO that kept me in line during the line check, so that's always helpful. And then Mike picked me up from the hotel, and as soon as he did that, 4 of Hapeville's finest PDs come ripping and tearing through the parking lot. So I told Mike to floor it to get us out of there because I didn't want to be a part of anything that was happening. So no, we're having a good time, as you can tell, and hope you're all doing well. And not a whole lot of news on the Guard front. For those of you that don't know, I'm joining the Air National Guard as a C-17 pilot for the 167th out of Martinsburg, West Virginia. So once I get updates on that, I'll keep you all posted, but nothing on that front so far.
That's awesome news. I can't wait to hear about your journey into the Air Force training and becoming an officer and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. All right, and then over here, the host of the Flying in Life podcast, dispatcher extraordinaire, the dispatcher of all dispatchers, over here, Mike Carrolls.
Hey, everybody in the community. As Jeff and Craig said, we got this text last night, and I said, yes, I'm down with it. I need something other to do than to just sit at home because, as Jeff said, I don't really have a life either. And, it's kind of nice to, just meet up with like-minded people who enjoy aviation. It just happened that my ETA at Craig's hotel was 7:37, and it worked out quite perfectly. Apparently, the Hapeville police also knew we were going to show up at 7:37. But no, it's a great time sitting here at the Corner Tavern, which is a good lunch spot that I used to usually go to when I actually went to work to go to work, opposed to just sitting in my office at home. But, it's kind of nice to be out here and do something somewhat normal in 2020 because this year hasn't been very normal.
No, it has not. And Naomi actually called me up and said, Jeff, is there anything that you can do to get Mike out of the house? And I said, I'll try to think of something. And then it was just happenstance that Craig said, "Hey, I'm in town." I went, "Yes." No, I'm just kidding. Naomi, you're not listening. Never mind. Anywho, so we're having a great time, and that's about it. Don't want to take up any more time, precious time, in this world-class aviation podcast. Back to you, Jeff. Right, here, all three of us together. 1, 2, 3.
Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I'll take it from here.
And that was the
Very
first
nice
time that I
handover.
listened to that recording, and I sort of
Nice,
remember
very nice.
what we were talking about there.
Nice.
Oh, I'm echoing. Oh, I know why. It's just to you. There you go. Sorry. I had my microphone on to the control room channel. Sorry about that, Liz. Anyway, yeah, I had a good time on Saturday night in the city, the small little city right next to the Atlanta airport. And it was always good to see Mike and Craig, and look forward to meeting up with them again in the future. So, I really was wondering what I was going to talk about during the segment. And then now it turns out that there were a lot of things I could talk about that I didn't remember. Yeah. Well, Liz says, "You do have a life, Jeff." And I said, "Yeah, well, I guess." Anyway, so I was supposed to go out on a trip day before yesterday. And on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, one of those days, I woke up and started walking on my left foot, and it was like didn't feel good at all. It was very painful. I was like limping around thinking, what the heck did I do to my foot? Felt like somebody had taken a hammer and hit the ball of my left foot. So I kind of hobbled around a little bit, and hobbled around at church on both Saturday and Sunday. I guess I must have hobbled over to the corner tavern as well, because I think that I started my hobbling on Friday, actually. And so it's much better now. Thank you. If you're wondering, I don't know if it's like the bones in your foot, I think sometimes get out of alignment or whatever. So I think old age. Thank you, Liz. But I was at the point that the night before the trip was to start, so Monday night, I was still hobbling around pretty badly. And I'm thinking, this is not a good look for an airline captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier walking through the concourse of these big international airports, hobbling around. And I'm thinking that's not a good look. And, honestly, I wasn't even sure that I had full capability of like depressing the toe brakes on the top of the rudder pedals for operating my flight. So out of an abundance of caution, I decided to go ahead and call in sick for this trip. But it was just because of my foot. It wasn't any kind of a respiratory thing or flu or anything else, COVID. Mm-hmm. So I put myself in foot quarantine and called in sick for the trip. But as I said, yesterday it started feeling much better, and today it's not 100%, but I'd say probably about 80% on my foot. So whatever it was, it seems to have worked itself out, I guess.
Excellent. It's a great call. I would have done the same.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard for me to do that because I think, well, especially those co-hosts that I'm with here know me pretty well, and I don't call in sick just because I feel like having more time off, and I really take my job seriously, and I don't call in sick unless it's really something that I feel is best to keep from infecting somebody else or whatever. But in this case, I kind of just had to sit myself down and have a talk with myself and say, you know what, I know you want to help out, but it's best, I think, for the company's reputation or whatever. You don't want to cause any scandal, so the optics would not be good. Thank you, Liz.
That's true.
I need to have Liz. I was just telling Liz that I wish that she were with me all the time, or at least had some kind of a audio channel in my ear at all times, because there are many times now that I'm at a loss for the word that I want to use, like that recording. And when we were listening to that recording, she actually said the word that I was looking for. So why weren't you there telling me what I was supposed to say at that point? Anyway, so called in sick, and I'm well now. And have another trip next week. I think it also leaves on a Tuesday, so good to go. So that is what I have been up to these last few days. Okay. Yeah. Nick, you still with us, man?
Yeah, just a quick yawn.
Okay.
No problem.
I know. I've seen that a lot. You know, I've spent a lot of time with Nick in my life, and he does that a lot when I'm talking to him. He yawns, starts looking the other way, paying attention to other things. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Were you still talking? Yeah. Sometimes he even nods off. Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's
okay.
11 o'clock at night. That's all.
Yeah,
That's
that's
my
okay. You
bedtime.
have an
So
excuse.
you
All right.
carry on, old chap.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. I think we should all carry on with the next Oh, no. I need to do the coffee fund first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I do have a couple of... first of all, I'd like to apologize to the folks that were coffee fund contributors on the last episode. I didn't do the graphics for the show, nor did I do the graphics for the chapter markers on the last episode. And so I do apologize. Mea culpa, I guess I should say. But I have them this time. So Liz is ready to go with that. And I'm going to hit this button here and play our coffee fund jingle.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh yeah, that's Jeff Smith singing the APG Java Jive, the Coffee Fund, your way to contribute to our show financially. And since the last episode, we have some Coffee Fund Classic folks who contributed. And we're going to look at that slide right now. There we go. Because I'm actually waiting for the slide so I can remember who those people were. Randy Ackerman, Mazuz Karim was on the live chat room with him during the live recording of PTUK on Friday. Michael Smith and George Leslie. So thank you, Randy, Mazuz, Michael, and George for your classic contributions. We do appreciate that. And we also have something called Patreon. You can become a patron of the show via Patreon. And since the last show, we have a new executive producer, Joseph Jake Jacobs. Welcome, Jake, to the patronage of the Airline Pilot Guy show. So if you want to join these great folks, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee and sign up. You'll be glad you did. And, you know, we will too.
Captain, incoming message.
Alrighty, so let's look at the feedback folder, of which I have not selected yet. Anybody need to take a break?
Yeah, I'll take a little break. I'll get a new cup
Okay.
of coffee here. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Excellent. We'll take a break and we'll be back. I don't know. Nick, are you talking to us or somebody else?
Sorry, there's no one else here.
I saw your mouth moving.
Yeah.
But then
I'll
you were
be
kind of
back,
turned to
I
the
was
side,
saying.
so I'm thinking, well, it may not be us that you're talking to. Oh, I don't have. I was going to have some
definitely
wine,
was.
but I don't have any wine left. Hey, you know what though? I still have beer in the fridge, so I have
While
emergency
there's beer
provisions.
in the fridge, something is going to happen.
Yes, I'll be right back. So Nick can entertain you with his ATEM software control media player or whatever he's doing there.
Well, I'm just trying
keep
to
it-
decide which
keep it clean.
which background
Ooh, that's
to
nice.
use. Can I have votes on this, please? I can fake black. Or the one I quite like, which is... Where'd you go? There you go. Oh, hello, little me in the corner. Oh, I can go to that corner. I can go back to that corner. It's cool, isn't it? Love this. Anyway, I told you a joke last week, but it was a bit rude. So I don't know if I ought to do that again. Because the only other one I know was about the airline pilot sitting at the coffee bar and on the airport, the Starbucks or whatever, and someone walks up to him and says, "Are you an airline pilot?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "Have you always wanted to be an airline pilot?" He says, "Yeah, when I grew up, I always loved the idea of flying, and got the qualifications, and went to school and fly school and passed out and worked very hard, and now I'm an airline pilot." And the bloke walks away. And then a young lady pitches up, very pretty young lady, and says, "Are you an airline pilot?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am." Tells the story again, when he was at school, when he grew up, etc. He said, "What are you?" And she said, "Well, I'm a lesbian."
Oh, no.
Sorry, Jeff. And he says, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, I've always liked girls. When I wake up in the morning, I think about girls, and I date a lot of girls, and I have a lot of fun times with girls, and I really enjoy it. It's absolutely fantastic." And they finish their coffee, and she wanders away. Then another bloke comes up and goes, "Are you an airline pilot?" And he said, "I used to think I was, but now I think I'm a lesbian."
So I didn't hear the very first part of that joke, so I guess I'll get to enjoy it when I'm doing the editing then.
Yeah. Enjoy, in inverted commas.
I love the video background you got going on there with snow and a Christmas tree and
well, you see,
Christmas ornament. Or Liz was thinking that you had dandruff, but
yeah,
no.
That too. I could just have, what's this one? That's not quite so. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of really regretting now that I got this for Nick.
Yeah. It's great. It's keeping me amused, and that takes some doing.
Oh, if anybody's wondering, I am drinking one of my favorite beers made by Sierra Nevada Brewing called Celebration Ale. It comes out, it's a seasonal beer that comes out usually in late October, and then they run it for as long as it lasts, I guess.
There we go.
All right.
What'd I miss?
You missed a joke that Nick told, but I only heard like the second half of it, so I'll get to relive it in post. Yeah, it has something to do with airline pilots and lesbians. That's all I can say, from what I gather. Yeah, well, I need to find that sound clip that we all.
So, what do you prefer, this
enjoy.
or the snowman?
I like the snowman better.
Yeah,
This
gives me the impression that I'm falling, which is not a good impression to give a pilot.
And it kind of reminds me of dice, like dice, but they're not dice; they're Christmas.
Wouldn't it
like
be
packages.
die?
Like an
Excuse me,
old-timey
you're right.
Windows
Die.
screensaver.
Dices. Dices. Okay, here it is. This is what I'm looking for.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
There, thank you, Matt. Oh, I didn't even mention, or did you mention though, that we were on the PTUK Christmas extravaganza,
yes, I
didn't
mentioned
we?
that. It was good fun.
Yep.
Steph
Yeah, we had a good
was
time.
supposed to be there as well, but she got busy.
Yes. Okay. Where were we? Okay. I don't know. Was that about a 5 to 10 minute break we just took there, Liz? 7-minute break. Okay.
Wow.
Very good. Hey, let's start with. Okay. Let's start with our first piece of feedback in the feedback segment, which is from Sam. And he said, "I hope that you're all well. I came across a video of The AN 124 at Rick, help me out again.
Novosibirsk.
Yes, that place being recovered that might be of interest, perhaps inspired by the 747 in Doncaster that was recovered by a local roadside recovery company using tow trucks and chains. This video shows the AN 124 being recovered using 2 tanks, military tanks, and some wire. And we have video of it, so there we go. At the back end of the AN 124, 2 tanks in series. There we go. You get the idea.
I have to say that's the most Russian thing I've seen in a long time.
Well, they're going to do something with all those thousands of armored personnel carriers they have.
They got a lot of them lying around doing nothing.
Yep.
Who let the dogs out? Boom, roof, boom, boom, roof, roof. Roof. Yeah. Oops. Who hit his beer against his boom arm?
Yeah. I might point out, actually, that when this thing went off the end of the runway, the gear had collapsed. It was full of stuff. So before they would have attempted this, they would have emptied all the cargo. They'd have defueled the aircraft. They'd have probably put bags under it, inflatable bags. That's the common way of lifting big aircraft up. And got the thing high enough to be able to get the gear sorted out. So it would have been quite light at this point, and back on its wheels. They may not have been perfect, but they would have been good enough to drag it away. And before they'd have connected these tanks to it. So it's not like they were dragging it off just after it ran off the runway. They would have prepped the aircraft. It would have taken probably quite some time as well.
So are you trying to say that the Russian tanks are not very powerful?
Well, I don't think they necessarily. They probably did need tanks, but just think about it. You can move one of these airplanes with a normal tow truck. You know, when you push it back. It was obviously in the mud and unprepared ground, so that it'd need something a bit tougher. But 2 tanks may not be necessary, but you could have done it with the strongest man in the world and a big long rope, probably. I don't know.
In that case, I think you may have had to set up porta potties.
Yeah, yes. Would have been there a while. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, or wear a nappy.
There you go.
Anyway, that's from Chief Officer Sam, your aircraft under tow correspondent. So this is his area of expertise. So that's why he wanted to point it out to us. Oh, he sails. Oh, under tow. Oh, really? How do you know that, Liz? Oh, okay. Okay, great. So he's a submariner? Is that what you were saying? Oh, a mariner. Okay, excellent. A marinator or a mariner? Okay, got it.
Making me hungry here.
Is he a chef?
Thinking of marinade here.
He might be. I don't know. Chief Officer Sam, we apologize. I'm sure whatever it is you do it well. And thank you for the feedback.
I'm guessing he's a fireman of some kind.
No, Liz says with certainty that he's a sailor.
Oh, okay.
He's at sea.
In
All right.
the Navy.
I don't know if he's in the, well, maybe. No.
Merchant
She thinks it's not merchant marine, maybe. Oh boy. The rabbit holes we fall in every show is
we
just
dig
amazing.
for ourselves.
Yeah, we do. Oh, Lane Street, very clever. Such a comedian. Tanks for the tow. Okay. Moving on with item 2 from Greg Peterson. And let's see, ran across this on FlightAware. Our biggest ass fan. Whatever. He ran across this on FlightAware the other day. It's a good-looking 727, but I definitely would not want to be a passenger on this one.
No, definitely not.
And why wouldn't we want to be a passenger, or why wouldn't he want to be a passenger on this one, Rick?
Because it says Policía Federal, which is the federal police of Mexico, and yeah, that'd be a bad day. You don't want to be in the back of that airplane.
It's a good-looking jet, though, even
It
in
is a
those
good-looking jet.
colors. Well, or lack of color.
Yeah.
So
Black
this
and
is
white.
Con Air, is it?
I guess
Or
the
they-
equivalent, yeah.
Their
But,
equivalent, yeah.
But look at that thing. It's got the winglets. And I remember it right after I got checked out on the 747 years ago. I rode on a 727 just like this one. Not this one, but just like this one.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
It was... I took... there's an airline that's based out of Miami called Amerijet. It's a cargo outfit that does flights. And they have 727s, and they fly 767, 200s, and 300s. And I took one of their 727s down to St. Martin, and
nice.
yeah, that airport with the famous where Maho Beach is, with the famous runway.
You leave tire tracks on the sand?
Yeah.
Is that where we're gonna do have an APG meetup there someday in the future?
Can you imagine? Oh man, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So I took that 727 down there, and it's the first time I flew a 727 in many, many, many years. I never thought I'd get to fly in one again, because these are becoming more and more of a rare sight. So I don't think there are any passenger carrying 727s. Well, definitely, at least not in the States. I don't know if they have them, perhaps in the dark continent. I don't know, but cargo, they're still flying. In fact, up in the ramp in Cincinnati, we parked next to a lot of these guys. Still, 40 plus years old, and they're still going strong. You just build them right. That's they just go forever.
Yep. And this thing was built like a tank.
Oh yeah.
Which
Man,
kind of ties into the last.
Yeah,
I tell you,
it could have towed that Antonov out easy, couldn't it?
No, I tell you, I've always said this, that there's 3 airplanes I wish I've flown. This is one of them, the 727. Another one's the DC-3. The other one's the DC-10. Just this thing is just wow.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks, Greg, for sending in that nice pic. Becky sent us this. I just saw a video of the Dreamlifter taking off, and it had accidentally landed in Kansas and had taken off from a shorter runway than normal. I'm curious, is the math clear enough that the pilot knew they could do a successful takeoff, or was it partially unknown when they started the roll? On the video I watched, people seem relieved. Was there a chance it wouldn't work? Again, this is from Becky Rausch.
No, they were just happy to see it go.
Yeah. I did see the video that she was talking about. We talked about this not long after it had happened. The original incident was back in 2013. Was an Atlas Air Boeing 747-400 Dreamlifter. And it was flying from Kennedy in New York to Wichita McConnell Air Base. Well, that's where they were trying to go with 2 crew. And they were on a GPS RNAV approach to McConnell Airport's runway 19 left, but unintentionally landed on runway 18 at Wichita's Colonel James Jabara Airport. The runway wasn't that short, 6,100 feet. I don't think they had any cargo on board. I think they were going to McConnell to pick up some 787 pieces.
Yeah.
And so they were probably, I don't know, probably empty or close to it. And but the width of the runway was only 100 feet. That probably would get my attention in a Dream lifter, only 100-foot wide runway. But I don't know. I've never flown one. But anyway, managed to stop the aircraft on the runway, and then the crew subsequently reported to be on the ground and intending to vacate via taxiway Delta, to which the tower responded puzzled, "Standby," then reporting they were about 8 nautical miles from the aerodrome. Actually, I think the transcript has it a little bit differently. I think the tower controller...
that's a long taxiway.
I think the tower controller told them, exit taxiway Delta, right on Delta, and then the crew just kind of paused for a couple of seconds and said that they were unable to do that because we landed at the other airport Let's see. No, here's his response. We'll get back to you here momentarily. We're not on your approach. And then he said, yeah, we landed at the other airport. During the subsequent discussion, the flight crew initially thought that they had landed at Beachfield, which was between Jabara and McConnell. And I think that even had a smaller or a shorter runway than the one they landed on. But they worked with the local controller to finally determine that they had landed at Colonel Jabara Airport. And so basically what Becky is asking us about is, and I, for some reason, I thought that they had to push the airplane all the way back to the other end of the runway, but they didn't. But they did have to get a tug. And I think maybe Rick told me this or somebody did, that they had to drive a tug big enough and beefy enough to maneuver the 747. They had to actually turn it around 180 degrees. They had to drive it from McConnell Air Force Base, 8-9 miles away. And that probably took forever, because those tugs don't drive that fast. Up to the Colonel Jabara Airport, get hooked up, and somehow they must have had many, many little turns here and there to move that airplane in the span of 100 feet to get it, completely turned the other direction. But they managed to do that, and then the next day they took off heading the opposite direction, runway 36 at Jabara, and then just made the quick 19-minute flight or whatever it was over to McConnell. And it was a happy ending from that point forward, except for maybe the pilots. It probably wasn't a happy ending for them. I have a feeling that they may have gotten in a wee bit of trouble with that one.
Yeah, just perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that was back in 2013 or 2012, I think.
I think they're a bit lucky, actually, that the runway they landed on had sufficient strength to support them. Because
well, I mean,
airplane
it's interesting, but you'd be surprised, Nick. The PCN classification of the 747 it's relatively low because of the number of wheels you have out there, and then the way that this better than anybody, the way that the weight is distributed. But to Becky's question, was anything left to chance? No. In aviation, nothing is left to chance, and I'm sure that. Well, it's not that I'm sure. I know for a fact that there were a team of people involved in making sure that the numbers add up. And obviously the airplane was flown out with just the amount of fuel required to get from point A to point B there. And the thrust required based on the conditions for the day, and the flap required. Obviously, it must have been a flap 20 takeoff, which you can do on the 747. So it must have been a flap 20 takeoff, max thrust type takeoff, and with just enough fuel to get you to where you need to go and get the airplane going. So I can guarantee you that nothing was left to chance here. Everything was, very meticulously studied.
Whenever we got in this situation, when we were in a strange airport that we didn't necessarily have figures for, we would just go through our database of all the airports that would be equivalent, and we'd use a rule of equivalency that would allow us to use the figures for an identical airport, the same height, same temperatures, same everything, and substitute them. No one would ever get airborne in an airplane as expensive as a Dreamlifter without number crunching properly. So I have absolutely no doubt that the boys have done their job properly.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think it was the last episode or the episode before that, we use a system, a company called Era Data, which does all the number crunching for us. So you just basically send out. So you have a template, a page template on your ACARS. And you fill in your departure runway, what the wind is, the temperature, the QNH or the barometric pressure, weight, projected flap setting, what kind of thrust you're going to be using, that kind of stuff. And then the system will send back the results for that, and it'll tell you what type of distance you're going to need for liftoff, what your speeds are for your V1, your go no-go speed, your VR rotation speed, and V2, your engine out safety speed, And not only that, but another very, very important piece of information is your stop margin. Should you abort or reject the takeoff, you need to know what type of runway, how much runway you have left after you begin the reject procedure there, because I mean, you want to know that you have enough runway to stop, and so that's another figure that the system spits back at you. So again, just making the point here that nothing was left to chance, absolutely nothing.
No. On the screen right now, I have a Google Earth view of satellite view of McConnell Airport, the airport of intended landing. Jabara up at the top, that's the one they actually landed on. And then the one that they thought they had accidentally landed on, which was Beach Airport, which is kind of between the two, maybe just slightly offset to the east. But all of these it seems like almost all the airports in Wichita are aligned pretty much north-south. For the prevailing winds.
And that was I seem to remember that was the issue here. The flight crew obviously misidentified at the airport and transitioned from a GPS approach to just a visual approach. And
well, it was that classic. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say it was a classic Swiss cheese kind of setup because the captain had gone in and flown this approach into McConnell Airport in the past, and this particular approach, he ended up always kind of being a little bit high. So he's already in his mind expecting that they're going to be coming in and they're going to be high on the approach for landing at the McConnell Airport, number one. Number two, the 19 right, this is a parallel. So I always thought, well, how in the world can you mistake Jabara with only one runway and McConnell with parallel runways? But turns out that 19 right was NOTAMed out of service, so they didn't have the runway lighting on. So they would have been expecting to see just a single runway with lights. So that's another like little hole in the Swiss cheese. The first officer's primary flight display was operating intermittently during the last stages of their flight. So they weren't sure exactly if they could trust the PFD, or he couldn't trust the primary flight display. So that was another little thing to throw in. And then when they spotted Jabara's runway 18, they thought, that's got to be it. We went for it. We're high. That's what I'm expecting. And they just dove down. And it actually, I think they were only 4.6 miles away at 3,900 feet. So that was a pretty darn steep descent from that point to land on that runway. But again, once you have it in your head that you're going to be high, you're only expecting to see one runway. It's lined up exactly the way I'm expecting it to be lined up. You can kind of see they went down the primrose path on this.
As far as the runway width, I haven't flown the 747 myself and haven't flown the Dreamlifter myself. The difference between usually runways, the width a normal runway width at major airports, international airports, and the top airports that Jeff, Nick, and I fly into or have flown into in our careers, range from between 150 to 200 feet. In the 747, you're sitting so high up off the runway that really that difference between the 150 and 200 foot runway width, it's
not that much.
At least I can't really tell that. I guess the only way you can tell is either by counting the number of straps in the piano keys or the threshold, or
I do that all the time.
Or looking at the 10.9 page, But at least for the 747, you're sitting so high up off the ground that it's really negligible. And then add to that the fact that it was at night, and makes it a little bit harder there. But again, just as Jeff says, the holes in the Swiss cheese model kind of line up, and you end up in a situation like this. The good thing here is that it really, nothing happened, just except perhaps a few bruised egos, and the airplane flew away. And just as you said, Jeff, yes, in fact, the airplane landed empty, because obviously there's a big Boeing plant there in Kansas, and flown there many times. And you go there and you actually pick up pieces for the 787, and you fly them on down to Painfield up in Washington State. So that's kind of how it goes.
All right. You know, the only time that for me, and usually for me it's 150 or 200 feet, because some of the airports we fly in, where it used to be like old Air Force bomber kind of bases that are now joint use or completely civilian. And so when they have a 200-foot wide runway, for me, I have to kind of consciously understand that. So as I'm getting in that latter stages, let's say, below 100 feet, 50 feet, and you're starting to make all your mental calculations and visual cues for the proper place to flare the airplane and shifting your gaze toward the end of the runway, I always have to remember, okay, 200 feet, wait like another potato or two before you do what you normally do, because otherwise you'll end up flaring too high and then you run out of airspeed and the thing just drops down and it's not a pretty landing.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my experience on the the big 747s, it's obviously you look out the window and you take in the visual cues, but at least on the 747, it's such a huge airplane. You're sitting so high up off the ground that really you land that airplane by ear more than by sight, and that you just kind of know based on the you get to about 50 feet on the radio altimeter, you hear the 50 call out, and you begin bringing the nose up, and then the thrust goes to idle at about 30 to 20 feet, and you just hold it, and it just settles down nicely. So that's kind of how I do it, at least, and it seems to work.
And I hear it's pretty much impossible to make a bad landing in that airplane.
Yeah, I mean, you enter ground effect. I mean, you talk a dash 8, you're talking about 225-foot wingspan, so you enter ground effect at about half of that. So the last 100 or so feet, you're basically in ground effect, and so that cushion of air really, really does help a lot. So
Just like landing on a nice big fluffy pillow.
Exactly.
Right? Every landing that Captain Nick was at the controls was like landing on a big fluffy pillow, right?
Barely any smoke from those tires. I don't know how Nick does it.
I don't either.
I've forgotten, actually. It was so long ago.
It's like riding on a bike
awesome.
out here. Once you do it once, you never forget.
When you said you landed by ear, I thought you meant, here comes the runway.
Bam.
That's
why his ear's a little scuffed up right now.
Exactly.
All that landing on his ear.
Mind you, you mentioned that they were a bit high on that approach for that runway. And I've done it myself. When you're a little bit high and you're working hard to get in, your sort of vision narrows and you're task saturated to a certain extent. I'm not suggesting it was. But if they'd been flying a normal approach, they may well have had all the time in the world to sit back and go, this runway doesn't look quite right. Have you noticed the range? We're not. But because they were probably working real hard trying to get rid of that height and get in, that a lot of that normal consideration would have gone out the window, I suspect.
I think on the tapes themselves, the cockpit voice recorder, at some point, getting close to the runway, the captain just said, "Hold my beer. I got this," or something like that.
And it's actually interesting because of this incident at our sister airline, Acme Giant, we started using a final cross check of the final approach fix, either in a non-position approach or final approach fix in an ILS, which is glide slope intercept at published altitude. There's usually a fix there, and so once you cross that fix, you have to verbalize the fact that you're crossing that fix and cross-check that with your altitude published at that fix to make sure that you are, in fact, over the fix and on that approach flying to that specific runway at that specific airport. So another cross-check to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Probably a good idea for all of us to do that at every airport we land in or on.
That's right.
All right. Well, you know what that means? It's now time for the best part of the show, which is the Old Pilot's Plain Tales, and this week's is a great one, all about that legend, Chuck Yeager, and the title of this week's tale, Legend.
Oh, bring it on. Can't wait for this one.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, Legend. Many of my aviation heroes are complicated people of nuance and contradiction, but not this man. As I reflect on his life, so recently ended, I remind myself of his uncompromising, direct manner, but also of his enormous courage and skill that brought him to the world's attention. Charles Edward Yeager was a man of his time, a time when his nation came to the rescue of the world, and with its industrial might, its technological supremacy, its unstoppable drive and determination, would go on to achieve feats of wonder that over 50 years later we're still finding it hard to equal. Chuck Yeager was born in 1923, and he was a long way from being a man of privilege. Like him, his father was stubborn and opinionated, something Chuck put down to his Dutch and German blood. Albert Yeager passed on much more than just his uncompromising manner, but the resolve embodied in his name, Yeager, originally spelt with a J meaning hunter. The family first lived in Myra on the Upper Mud River in West Virginia, where Chuck's father worked for the railroad, shoveling coal, before they moved to Hamlin when he became a gas driller. It was tough growing up during the Great Depression, but with a safe income the family prospered in comparison to many. Their dad often took the Yeager boys on hunting trips, where Chuck's exceptional eyesight, later measured by the Air Force at 2010, and his steady hand made him a good shot. Albert also taught Chuck to be a mechanic, and at only 8, he was up in the gas fields helping to rig pumping engines. At school, he excelled in anything that involved dexterity or mathematical aptitude, but his English and history tutors despaired. A great sportsman, he would also have been a damned good trombone player if only I practiced, he said. But between girls, chores, homework, hunting and fishing, his time was stretched thin. In 1941, Chuck enlisted as a private in the U.S. Army Air Force and became a mechanic at George Air Force Base in California. His age and lack of education made it impossible for him to become a pilot. But less than 3 months later, the United States entered the war. Recruiting standards were lowered, and his natural skills were soon recognized. Chuck Yeager was on his way to a cockpit. He'd been up for a ride with a maintenance officer, and he threw up all over the back seat, staggering out as miserable as he'd ever been, but it didn't put him off. He was also lucky that his records had been delayed, as his court-martial for shooting a grazing horse dead with a machine gun while supposedly on guard duty might have put paid to his ambitions. His initial training complete, and at the top of his class, he soon found himself in the Bell P-36 Airacobra, whipping through the desert canyons at 300 miles an hour, so low that the boys were leaving prop marks on the dirt roads. Chuck didn't much like the Airacobra. It was underpowered, and he joined in singing a song all about it.
Don't give me a P-39 with an engine that's mounted behind. It will tumble and roll and dig a big hole. Don't give me a P-39.
There was a gruesome selection process going on, as many of his colleagues killed themselves, auguring in or buying the farm, as he described it, and the accident rate was so bad that his group commander lost his job. Yeager didn't have much time for those who didn't make the grade, saying that he got angry at them for dying so young and senselessly and destroying expensive government property in the process. Having said that, Chuck took his fair share of risks. Befriending a local farmer, he tried to help him take down an old tree by topping it with the wing of his P-39. When he landed back, the maintenance officer wanted to know why his wingtip was smashed and full of bits of wood. "I hit a bird," Yeager lied. "Well, that bird must have been in one hell of a nest," he replied, and promptly grounded him for a week. Posted to be a maintenance officer himself, Chuck found himself flying the P-47 Thunderbolt, which he promptly used to beat up the main street of his hometown, Hamlin, at 500 miles an hour. He was accused of wrecking the place, sending one old lady to hospital, blowing down crops, and terrifying horses, cows, and pigs into miscarrying. Visiting the place afterwards, he would meet the love of his life, Glenys Dickhouse, the sharpest-looking dancer in the Elk Club Hall. His flying exploits were never-ending when the back end of his P-47 blew up, pushing fire into the cockpit. As the aircraft disintegrated around him, he jumped for it, but was knocked out when his parachute opened. A sheep herder found him and tossed him onto the back of his burrow. Jaeger would wake up moaning and groaning in hospital with his back fractured. His back was still troubling him when he was finally sent to England to fly P-51 Mustangs out of RAF Leiston. He had named his aircraft Glamorous Glen, and he was sending his paycheck back to his girlfriend, but now he had more important things to cope with, his survival. It was 1944, and Chuck was a 21-year-old fighter pilot on his 8th mission. He already had one kill to his name, but now he was on the receiving end of the 20mm shells from a Focke-Wulf 190. As his world exploded around him, he ducked down, but he was on fire. There was a gaping hole in his wing, and he was spinning down towards the overcast clouds. Moments later, he was in his parachute, dangling from a tree in southern France, luckily only a few inches from the ground, but dripping blood from his head and leg. He was now officially missing in action. Hiding in heavy undergrowth, listening to the shouts of the German soldiers searching for him, he treated his shrapnel wounds and studied his escape map. He stayed put overnight, and despite an intensive search, next morning he was still undiscovered. When a woodcutter passed nearby, he took a chance and spoke to him. In the hands of the underground, Jaeger started an adventure that would last over 2 months until he faced the final barrier, the Pyrenees Mountains. With him now was a B-24 navigator called Pat, and they struggled upwards together in the bitter cold until they were spotted by a German patrol who opened fire. Pat is shot in the leg, but they escape through the night, with Jaeger having to cut the remains of Pat's leg free before bandaging him up. Jaeger dragged the unconscious man over the mountains to safety, a remarkable feat that won him the Bronze Star for valor. Back with his squadron, Chuck fought a posting to the States so that he could remain on active duty, and goes on to become the first pilot in his group to become an ace in one day, when on the 12th of October 1944 he downed 5 aircraft in a single mission. 2 of his kills came in an almost comical fashion when he settled in behind an Me-109, but before he could open fire, the pilot broke left and ran straight into his wingman. Jaeger finished the war on 11.5 kills, one of which was an Me-262 jet bomber, one of the very first to be downed. After the war, Chuck married his glamorous Glenys, and with his flying and maintenance experience, the Air Force gave him a job of testing repaired aircraft at Wright Field. He was under the command of the Flight Test Division and was also getting time on the new jet fighter, the Shooting Star. This was followed by visits to Muroc Army Airfield, which would eventually become Edwards Air Force Base, where Chuck's obvious talent was noticed. January 1946 saw Chuck with his friend Bob Hoover sitting together on the 6-month test pilot's course at Wright Field. Passing the course put Chuck Jaeger on the path to fame, as the Bell Aircraft Company was looking for someone to fly their Bell X-1 experimental rocket-powered aircraft. At the time, there were many who thought that breaking the sound barrier was an impossibility. Wartime aircraft had come close, but the violence that they incurred as compressibility effects shook their machines around made it seem impossible. In England, the famous test pilot Geoffrey de Havilland had already died in the attempt when his tailless Swallow experimental aircraft broke up at Mach 0.94. The Bell test pilot, Slick Goodlin, had taken the X-1 to Mach 0.8, but wanted $150,000 to attempt the flight beyond Mach 1. Bell's chief test pilot, Tex Johnson, flew the X-1 to Mach 0.75 to confirm the dangers and agreed that Goodlin should be paid, but the Air Corps had lost patience with the delays and were taking control. Within a few months of graduating from test pilot school, the head of the test flight division nominated Yeager, the most junior test pilot on the base, to be the principal pilot of the X-1. Jack immediately picked his friend Bob Hoover to act as his backup pilot and Jack Ridley as flight engineer. Looking over the ship, Yeager saw a bright orange bullet with razor-thin wings. The only way in or out was through a small side door that threatened to cut anyone foolish enough to try to jump in half. Surrounding the hangar were labs with vats full of alcohol and others oozing smoking fog from liquid oxygen at minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit. To illustrate the point, someone dipped a frog into a tank and then dropped it on the floor, where it shattered into pieces. Yeager was considering taking this rocket ship through a very narrow region of flight never encountered before, through a supersonic shock wave. Now, a shock wave is a very narrow region, perhaps 1,000th of an inch, 0.025 of a millimeter thick, in which the air is in a high state of energy. On transitioning a shock wave, flow is violently compressed, its velocity is decreased and temperature increased. When transonic and supersonic, conventional aerodynamics change, and the alterations can be dangerous. The balance of an aircraft can alter dramatically as the center of pressure moves aft. Controls can become ineffective, and the stress on an airframe destructive. Yeager's boss told him that nobody knew for sure what would happen at Mach 1 until someone got there. Some very good aviation people thought that the loads on the aircraft would go to infinity. You know what that means, he asked. He knew. Chuck practiced a few glide drops from the belly of the B-29 mothership from 25,000 feet. He needed to dead stick the aircraft onto the lake bed, even on a powered flight. The fragile undercarriage couldn't cope with the weight of fuel, so any left was jettisoned before landing. It also made things considerably safer. Then things began in earnest as they loaded fuel, and on their first attempt, Chuck took the X-1 to 45,000 feet and then did a few aileron rolls before diving down a Muroc and beating up the airfield at 300 feet, before zooming back up to 35,000 feet and hitting Mach 0.85, the fastest the X-1 had been. Yeager was slapped down hard and agreed to live by the rules from then on, perhaps. They were now in uncharted territory, and in small increments they built up the speed. At 0.86, the shock buffeting started. Controls became sluggish, and they encountered a wing drop as the shock waves moved back and forth on the wings. At 0.88, the ailerons were vibrating, and it was hard to stay wings level. At point 94, there was unusual buffeting, and pulling back on the stick had absolutely no effect. The elevators had ceased to function. They had reached a dead end. But then Jack Ridley suggested using the electric tailplane trim to control pitch. Nobody disagreed. They tested the system on the ground thoroughly and then flew again. Ridley was right. Above point 94, the trim gave just enough pitch to keep the X-1 controllable. They reached point 96, but then the windshield, tiny windows of perspex, with a poor enough view at the best of times, frosted over. Chuck had to be talked down into a position to land by the chase plane, and using instruments alone, he lined up and safely landed on the lake bed. From then on, they coated the windscreen with Drene shampoo until the Air Force came up with something else that cost $18 a bottle. Then heading out to dinner, Yeager fell off his horse, knocking himself out and breaking a couple of ribs. The pain was intense, and a local doctor taped him up. But could he fly? The next day, Chuck took Jack aside, and they jerry-rigged a broom pole to let him lever the door shut. Most other things he could do with his right hand, which wasn't a problem. The next flight, the 9th, was to Mach point 97. In his leather jacket, Yeager painfully climbed into the X-1 cockpit and put on the makeshift helmet that he'd made himself from a wartime tank helmet. By now, the bright orange X-1 had glamorous Glennis painted on her nose. With difficulty, he levered the hatch shut and prepared himself. If this went well, the next flight would be the one. In the cockpit, he was semi-prone, squeezed in with his knees higher than his shoulders. He took hold of the control yoke, shaped like an H, with the critical switches mounted on it. The countdown started, and then with a pop, like a snapping cable, they dropped him. The jolt lifting him off his seat, shoulders straining against the straps. Into the bright sunlight it was a struggle to see and to get the X-1 flying, as it was heavy with fuel, and the drop was again too slow. The moment he got her under control, he fired all 4 rocket chambers in quick succession and felt the force of the rockets pushing him in the back. Once up to speed, he turned 2 chambers off and leveled at 42,000 feet, doing Mach point 92, 30% fuel left. Flicking number 3 back on, the little machine accelerated, and Yeager noticed that the faster he went, the smoother things became. He was indicating Mach point 96 when the needle began to fluctuate. It reached Mach point 965 and then went right off the scale. Chuck Yeager was thunderstruck.
Hey, Ridley,
he called.
This Mach meter's acting screwy. It just went off the scale on me. Son,
came the reply.
You're imagining things.
Down in the NACA tracking van, the guys interrupted to report that they had just heard thunder, a sonic boom, the first to be heard on the planet Earth. Telemetry showed that the X-1 had reached Mach 1.07. The sound barrier had just been smashed. Of course, things for Lieutenant Chuck Yeager didn't finish there. He was only 24 years old and had a lifetime of achievement ahead of him. But this single event changed his fortunes forever, even if he wasn't allowed to tell anyone, since it was classified secret until 1948. He continued to break records in the X-1 and the X-1A, reaching Mach 2.44 at 80,000 feet during a flight when his aircraft became uncontrollable due to inertia cross-coupling and fell 51,000 feet before Yeager could regain control. Primarily an Air Force fighter pilot, though, Chuck would fight in the Vietnam War and go on to command squadrons, wings, and as a brigadier general, he would command the 17th Air Force. He wore the Distinguished Service Medal, the Silver Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Legion of Merit with Cluster, the Distinguished Flying Cross with 2 clusters, the Bronze Star Medal for Valor, the Purple Heart, the Air Medal with 2 silver clusters, the Air Force Commendation Medal, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He would be inducted into halls of fame around the planet. Chuck Yeager died on the 7th of December at the age of 97. And although the world of aviation will mourn his passing, we'll also celebrate the man he was. Irreverent, cocky, full of confidence and ability. One of a rare breed of pilots that truly pushed the envelope to its absolute limit.
All right.
What a guy.
What a guy. What a
fantastic
pilot.
Just unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's actually very exciting to read his life story. You've just got to take into account that he was an egotistical man and, absolutely sure of his own ability, which makes him come across as pretty high-handed. But there was no doubting his confidence in his ability, his skill. And, of course, people like to follow people with confidence. He was a great leader as well as everything else. And he did it. So what the hell? Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I love the man.
Oh, yeah.
I was just watching The Right Stuff again last night. Yeah, it was...
Great story, isn't it?
Yeah. They took a couple of little, Hollywood...
liberties?
Whatever. Liberties,
Did you know
yes.
that Chuck Yeager was in the film?
No. Where was he in the film?
There you go. He was serving behind the bar at the Happy Bottom Riding Club. He was the barman. So he was the old-looking barman behind the bar.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Fantastic story. Yeah,
I
know they really were at the cutting edge, and they were working with equipment that would seem so primitive to us, but they just made it happen. It's a bit like the Apollo story. The kit they worked with was so basic compared with what we have available now, but they just got on and did it. They're brilliant, brilliant people.
Well, you mentioned that he had that confidence and he was very, very cocky, and you had to be a test pilot in that era, I think, or maybe even all eras. But anyway, I remember a story. You remember the trying to remember the mission, Burt Rutan and somebody else, and they flew the airplane completely around the world in one tank of fuel.
Composite airplane, yes. I'm trying to remember what it was called now.
I forgot exactly what it was called, but somebody had asked Yeager what he thought about that amazing feat. Now, again, this is all hearsay, or I didn't, hear it myself, and it was secondhand information to me. But I heard that his response was, "Well, you put a big enough fuel tank on something, you can fly forever." And I was thinking, whoa, well, okay. But I mean,
not mincing words, huh?
But they had to fly at pretty low altitudes in this thing and through amazingly bad weather and systems and thunderstorms and everything else, and avoiding them because this thing was very fragile. And I'm thinking it really took a lot for that team to fly all the way around the world on that one tank of gas. And then just that comment, again, attributed to him. I don't know for sure that he said that or not. And I thought, well, what a jerk he is.
Well,
my question here is how did he feel sitting in the back of that tandem F-15? They're having to sit in the back.
Oh yeah,
imagine
he wasn't happy about that either.
Happy about that.
Well, he wasn't a very young man, and he was actually very gracious because they asked him what it was like to fly it, and he said, "Well, I was just sitting in the back." thanks to him.
Okay.
But the other pilot piped up and said, well, Major, he was Brigadier General Yeager. He did all the flying,
Yeah, when asked about that, he said...
humility. It was very funny. In his early parts of the book of his life, there are lots of sections written by his contemporaries, one of which was the boss and a senior guy in the test pilot school. And they said at that time in his career, Yeager could hardly put words in a sentence to make it make sense. He said he was terribly badly spoken. He could hardly write. He said he was, he really did struggle with a lot of that. And it was only the Air Force that brought him on, and he became incredibly eloquent, very well written. He became, the Air Force really made him as a man. But in those early days, they said, he could hardly string two words together. No one could understand him. Which I found
now, Nick,
remarkable.
and how did the disconnect, or how did why didn't he ever transition from being an Air Force test pilot and moving on to NASA, for example, or being selected as one of the first astronauts?
Well, it might have been his lack of education. I think those early astronauts all had very extensive degrees in engineering and equivalents, aeronautics, etc. He had nothing. He graduated high school, but that was about it.
Right.
So I think that was one of the things that probably held him back. And I suspect, quite honestly, once he'd done the big things in flight test, he wanted to move on, get back to the fight. He wanted to get out of the Vietnam War. He wanted to be a squadron commander. He wanted to lead people. And that's what he ended up doing. That was, and of course, we're talking about the first 5 years of his Air Force career. He had another 20 or 30 years of achievement ahead of him, which, of course, is impossible to cover in just 20 minutes. But, he carried on doing incredible things. He really did.
Yeah.
Hamish helped us out. He says Voyager was the first non-refueled circumnavigation.
That's
Rutan and Gianna Yeager, no relation to Chuck. The aircraft hangs in the lobby of the National Aerospace Museum here in D.C. Thank
along
you,
with the
Hamish.
Bell X-1.
Yeah, that's right. Bell X-1 is there as well.
Oh, you know what? And he was also quoted as saying after that F-15 ride, somebody asked him, what did you think about, the difficulty of flying an F-15? And he said, any monkey could do it. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't.
But having
didn't
said
say
that, any monkey like Colonel Jeff. But having said that, he did love the airplane. He thought it was a fantastic airplane.
I know. I'm just kidding. I made that up. So, all you haters out there, I'm offended at airlinepilotguy.com. The other story that I have, I know we're dwelling on Yeager, but he's worthy to be dwelled upon.
Absolutely.
Is the story that when I was working, the last job that I had in the Air Force before I left was a wing safety officer, and our office was located in the base operations of the Columbus Air Force Base. And a lot of time, that's where transit aircraft would come through the base and do their flight planning and filing and weather briefings and that kind of thing. And there was a Harrier that was parked out. I think it was there because of a hurricane or something like that. They had to fly the thing away from the coast, wherever it was based, to get away from the hurricane that was coming from whatever the hurricane was at that time. And it was stuck there for a few days because the engine had some kind of an issue. And so I was talking with them, and I don't know how we ended up talking about Colonel Yeager or General Yeager, I guess. And he said that he had the opportunity to fly in one of the two-seaters with Chuck Yeager. And he said the Harrier is a very, very difficult airplane to fly, especially hover, do the vertical takeoff and landing. And I guess the F-35 is much easier, a lot more computer control and everything else. But the Harrier did not have all those fancy things helping you out. And he said from the moment he touched the controls on this Harrier jet, he was like hovering the thing and flying it. I mean, he was amazingly naturally talented as far as stick and rudder skills. And he said he was just blown away how he could possibly do that well for the very first time he touched the controls.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I
quite
mean,
a
he
gifted,
famously called Bob Hoover the greatest stick and rudder man he knew. But
Mm-hmm.
I suspect he still thought he was number 2 to
Besides
Chuck
himself.
Yeager.
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
I tell you, that book goes on to describe those two. Bob Hoover was his chase pilot when he was flying the X-1. On several of their missions, when he'd done what he meant to do, he and Bob Hoover had a dogfight. And they fought the chase aircraft. And this bloody X-1, he said, which was built so strong, it would, he would die before the aircraft came apart. That's how strong it was. And he said he always shot him down because actually the X-1, despite having incredibly thin wings, was light because it had no fuel, and he was gliding and it turned really well, and he said he always waxed his ass. So I could just imagine these two. They've done their test flying and now they're having a dogfight on the way back down to land at the lake bed. I mean, what a tale.
Yeah, man.
Brilliant.
Sounds like a book that I'd like to read.
Yeah, the one I've got, I think I bought when I was out in Australia. It's just called Jaeger. It's
Jaeger.
his autobiography.
Very nice.
I've had a few Jaegers in my life. Oh, that's a different.
Yes, I know.
All right. Well done, sir. And our salute goes to Chuck Yeager. May he rest in peace. And I'm sure he is in good company at this time.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, you seen that cartoon that Liz was putting out?
I was thinking of that cartoon.
It's just brilliant. Cartoon of Chuck Yeager eventually walking back into Pancho's bar, and there's all the other dead test pilots there, and someone's saying, "Hey, Chuck, what took you so long?" I thought that was great.
Very nice.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's resume the feedback with item 4. Let's see. I was wondering if Rick could talk a little bit. Rick, talk about something technical? No, that's impossible.
Can't happen. Yeah.
I was wondering if Rick could talk a little bit about extremely cold cargo. With the advent of the new Pfizer vaccine that must be maintained at minus 70 degrees Celsius, meaning that it's shipped in dry ice, how are large volumes of that handled as aircraft cargo?
Well, with anything that needs to be kept at very, very low temperatures, we carry lots and lots of dry ice to be able to keep the cargo at those low temperatures. And so the issue with dry ice here is that dry ice is solid carbon dioxide. So and that is classified as a hazardous material, not because it's combustible or anything like that. It's just because it displaces oxygen at a very, very high rate. And so a lot of the well, not a lot of, but just Western-made aircraft, the pressurization and air conditioning system doesn't discriminate between the I guess the supernumerary or the area where the flight crew is and the cargo area, and so that air is it's one big balloon that you pressurize with air tapped from the engines. And so there's no way of isolating the cargo decks from the part of the aircraft that is crewed. And so there are limits to the amount of dry ice that you can take. And there's guidelines as to where this dry ice can be placed. And for example, in passenger aircraft, obviously, you cannot have dry ice in the part of the aircraft that carries passengers and crew because of that very same issue, the fact that dry ice will displace oxygen. And so anytime there's dry ice on board, we are made aware of this via a document called a NOTOC, which is a notice to captain. And the captain of the flight will review this document. It'll tell you where this dry ice is located and the amount of dry ice that you have. And you have to make sure that the amount of dry ice is less than what you can legally carry for safety reasons. And so it changes from aircraft to aircraft and from location to location. So, for example, here, I'm referring to the dangerous goods manual, and also a chapter in the flight operating the FOM, the flight operating manual for my particular airline here. And so, for example, here it says here that the 747 in the main deck, you can carry up to 2,000 kilograms. That's 4,400 pounds of dry ice in the main deck, and you can carry 1,100 pounds in the lower decks, 1,100 pounds in the front lower deck, and 1,100 pounds in the aft lower deck. And so you make sure that your numbers are below that. Now, I understand we have a very interesting bit of feedback here that differentiates Western-built aircraft from Russian-built aircraft, and I found that very, very interesting. Actually, that's something that I didn't know. Actually, it's quite interesting.
What? You didn't know something?
No,
Oh my gosh!
I had no idea.
Wow, this is quite a moment
I
here.
guess that's because of all the holes in the Russian airplanes, is it?
Yeah, I was doing a little. No, who said that in? I think it was Christian Bass.
Yeah, Christian Bass.
Yeah, he said he sent us the link to this article. Dry ice, the Russian AN-124 freighter. It's COVID vaccine advantage. And you want to talk more about that, Rick, or you want me to take it?
No, so sure, I can talk about it. So basically,
Yeah.
it says here that let me see here. I can read off it. So it says the AN-124 is a massive cargo plane that often carries generators from farm equipment. Volga Nepper says it can play a role in COVID vaccine distribution. Most aviation professionals don't envision the Russian-built AN-24 super freighter playing a role in COVID vaccine distribution because it's an older, drafty plane often used to haul extra heavy, oversized cargoes. Think helicopters, turbines, and trucks. But the AN-124 has a unique advantage that could make it useful. It has no limits on dry ice. And it says here that could be a critical factor when trying to quickly get large amounts of temperature-sensitive vaccine to people around the world, especially in less developed areas, and when air freight capacity is already scarce because of strong trade and widespread closure of passenger operations. Says here that talks about the temperature requirements for some of these vaccines, which the Pfizer one here has to be kept
Crazy
at
cold.
minus 70 degrees Celsius, which is
Yikes.
quite cold.
Yeah.
And then Moderna's got to be kept at minus 20 Celsius. And it goes down here to talk about no limit. It says here that rules changes aren't necessarily with the AN-124 because the more spacious the cargo cabin, the more dry ice that is allowed under international dangerous goods regulations. Also, the AN-124, and this is what I was talking about, has a special ventilation system that is separate from the crew cabin. So these, the fact that solid carbon dioxide, which again is what dry ice is, the fact that it displaces oxygen doesn't affect the AN-124 because the system that regulates air to the crew is completely separate from that of the cargo compartment, which obviously makes it just the perfect aircraft for this type of operation.
I did think it was interesting, though. The owner of Volga Nepper also operates a large fleet of Boeing 747 freighters. He kind of made it sound like that the 747 was the most efficient airplane to use in the transportation of vaccines and not the 124. But I thought that was kind of an interesting comment. I would have thought they would have, really monopolized or I don't know the word. Anyway, took advantage of.
Just use the AN-124 because of this. But you talk about, you compare the AN-124 to the 747. You're talking about right off the bat, 747. You're talking about speed. The 747. You're talking 8.5 Mach, and that's on the low end of the speed scale for 747. And then there's a lot more operating 747s around it, and I've seen these air bridge cargo airplanes all over the place, and I certainly think that they have more 747s than they have AN-124s, because I don't believe they make it with the AN-124 anymore. Is this? I don't believe it's an aircraft.
No, I don't
No,
think
they
so.
don't. There aren't that many in civilian use. I think about 30.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
a huge number. And anyway, a large number of them have been grounded since that accident they had.
Exactly
the
right.
engine
That's
blew
another
up
point.
recently.
Yeah.
So even less flying at the moment. I don't think that's a serious advantage, quite honestly. If you want to move this stuff around, you could corner every freighter in the world, quite honestly, because the world needs the stamp vaccine, and the rest of the world's rubber dog shit can stay on the ground, quite honestly. We need to get this stuff where it needs to go. So, yeah. If you need
we'd
to,
like to
just
say
pull
that
the
HR
stops
would like
out,
to
don't you?
apologize for the use of that language by Captain Nick. It'll be censored in the audio-only version.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was merely quoting someone else.
Yeah, it's a famous, a famous movie.
That doesn't get you off the hook.
Does it not?
No.
Sorry.
No, but I found it really interesting. I had no idea that the AN-124 had an isolated system for the main deck and deck ventilation, and I thought that was really
I had
interesting.
no idea either. That was an interesting article. Thank you, Christian. Oh, and by the way, Micah is the one that sent in that original feedback, and I did not mention that when we started doing that piece of feedback there. So.
Yeah, thank you, Micah. Good one.
All right. Kind of winding down here. So I can tell you right now, I doubt that we're going to be able to get to every piece of feedback that we have in our feedback folder, but that's okay because we'll just move it on to the next episode. But this one from Mike. G'day, crew. Can you guess? He's from down under. He's from Auckland, New Zealand. Love the story Captain Jeff recalled, episode 449, around the FMS issue where something didn't feel right, but put it down to being new. Having been trained on various turboprops, currently a Q300 captain, I too have had similar things happen, mostly insignificant minor things where you have something like this, but blame yourself first every time. Let's be honest. It usually is us typing something silly in or doing something out of sequence. True. That seat of the pants feeling of something doesn't feel or look right, be it something like this or when you're flying, is such an important skill that can't be taught, but earned through years of experience. I found using the words, quote, "it doesn't normally do this," goes a long way to explain to the engineers, mechanics, an issue, which they normally then sit up and take a closer look. I really appreciated your story. Merry Christmas to you and the crew. Again, Mike, in Auckland, New Zealand. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree 100%. You know, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, going, nah, I don't know. You know,
of course, it's better if you actually recognise what the problem is, so you don't have to rely on some nebulous feeling. You go, oh, that display isn't
there we
right
go.
because
Exactly.
that's in the wrong place. But if you have to rely on your feelings, fair enough.
You know,
Feelings.
I agree.
Nothing more than feelings. I have a feeling Google's already sending the email to me. Okay.
Well, you can pay yourself royalties then.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. Number 6 from Richard. Cessna 172 enters runway without permission. Radio misunderstanding. He said, another case of non-standard RT causing an issue. And then he gives us a link to this YouTube video. And we do have that. Liz, if you want to go ahead and play this YouTube video. Okay. From Bass Aviation. November 1307 Golf has just landed on runway 17.
Cessna 07 Golf. You can turn left there at Foxtrot. Where are you parking? Jet Bravo 8 Bravo Charlie, standby. I got an aircraft just sitting on the runway. Cessna 07 Golf, where are you going to park?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't know where to.
So 07 Golf, just stop your aircraft then. So 07 Golf, what is it that you need while you're here? Okay,
Just
there we
needed to
go.
part
Now we
again.
got this figured out. Why don't you just make a 180 and hold short of the runway?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Cessna 4 Victor Uniform, runway 17, you cleared option. You can turn right on course, maintain 6,000 on the go.
Okay, 17 clear for the option, and then direct on course up to 6,000. 4 Victor Uniform, thanks.
Yeah, there. Cessna's turned around. Holding short, runway 17.
November 1307 Golf, Salina Tower, continue holding.
Continue holding.
Okay,
4
I
Victor
understand
Uniform,
that.
cross out, guys.
So 4 Victor Uniform, roger.
Our next communication is about 3 minutes later. Silences and other transmissions have been deleted.
Salina Tower, N1307 Golf, holding short at Foxtrot. Broken reservation for takeoff to the southwest.
So 1307 Golf, Salina Tower, continue holding.
Roger that, continuing rolling. And I'm sorry about all that confusion.
07 Golf, continue holding, not rolling, continue holding.
Going around 4 Victor Farm.
Cessna 4 Victor Uniform, roger, go around, and you can enter a left downwind, or actually just proceed right on course.
4 Victor Uniform proceeding on course, thanks for the help.
Cessna 1307 Golf, runway 17 at Foxtrot, clear for takeoff.
And 1307 Golf, clear for takeoff.
Cessna 4 Victor Uniform, contact Kansas City Center.
Over to center, good luck, 4 Victor Uniform.
Thank you.
Salina Tower, N1307 Golf, I am so sorry about that.
So 07 Golf, just listen a little bit more carefully.
Yes, sir.
Both aircraft continued safely. And here
Interesting. He didn't get a phone.
Well,
number
I
to
think
call.
it's because he was a solo student pilot. So he has no, even then, maybe, having a talk to somebody. Yeah, you're right.
Talking to you, that'll set you straight early on in your career.
Mhm.
I think I don't know.
Now, a lot of people, said,
I thought hold short.
yeah, okay,
was
so
the
standard
terminology.
radio terminology
that's
may
true.
have helped. Although I must say, and now, watching this once more than I did yesterday, the first time he said continue holding, he read back continue holding, and he understood what tower meant by that, and he continued holding short. And then the second time, he understood him to say continue rolling, which I've never heard anybody say that.
No.
But he's a student pilot. He's, he hasn't been exposed to a lot of radio terminology. And he assumed that he wanted him to go onto the runway and take off. But without hearing clear for takeoff, you know what I mean? I can go both ways with this.
Oh, yeah,
saying,
absolutely.
If he had said hold short, then perhaps that would have made his brain cells click in the right direction and go, okay, I'm just going to stay put.
I was really referring to the fact that he'd misunderstood the holding for rolling. So repeating the same words when you're trying to get him to stop isn't actually going to help, because he's already made that mistake once. He's probably going to make it again. So
hold short,
use
hold
a
short,
different phrase.
stop.
Yeah, exactly right.
I was kind of surprised as well that he didn't say, hold short or stop or something that was clear and not, using the same misunderstood words.
That was the only point I was making.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. And, and standard radio terminology or phraseology is important. by both parties. And so I guess you could put a little blame on both sides for this one. But fortunately, for Victor Uniform, the airplane that was doing the option was, paying attention to the situation, keeping situational awareness, and saw that this guy had crossed over the hold short line and was going onto the runway. And he said, going around.
Yeah, and for those who
I
don't know
realise
what...
he's a student, but we all three would have looked down the approach lane to make sure there's no one on the approach before we
Mm-hmm.
took it on the runway, even though we've been given a clearance.
In fact, that's something that's in our standard operating procedures.
Exactly.
Make sure that so you do two things. You make sure that the runway that's in front of you is a runway that in fact is the one you're going to be taking off from, and then two, you make sure that there's nobody in finals. And also, for those out there that don't know what the option means, it basically means that you're clear to either do a low approach, a touch and go, or a full stop landing. So that you have the option to do either one of those three. So that's what the option means.
It's always good to have options.
Exactly. You keep your options open.
Liz makes a point saying that based on what she could hear in the video, or the audio of the video, is that it didn't sound like English was his native language, perhaps. And that might be another factor in it. He did sound like he had some kind of an odd accent, or not an American accent.
Which is, even why it's even more so. It's why it's so important to make sure that you use standardized aviation phraseology. I think that, and even airline pilots, we are sometimes guilty of not using standard phraseology, and that's just what happens sometimes.
I know, and that's and it's sometimes it's easy to do. You get lazy, or you say something you think is kind of clever, but usually that's the wrong thing to do. It's always the wrong thing to do. Actually, just use the right terminology all the time, and that way you don't have you have troubles like this.
Yep.
So anyway, let's see here. We're getting close to the end of the show. Don't worry, I think we still have time left on planet Earth. 7 from Robert. He sends us a picture. Maybe Liz, you can put the overlay up of this. Would be quite an interesting ride on this most new series. It's an A330-100 most, right behind it, it says on this toy airplane, most new series, first to fly. And this is from Robert in Mayretta. I'm thinking that it was something like, it went something like this. This is the toy store. Hey, Joe. Yeah. Okay, I got a fuselage of 747. I can't find the wings. Oh, just use any wings, the 330 wings. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, that's a slap on. So it's like a twin engine 747
built by Airbus.
Airplane.
Built by Airbus, exactly.
With big A330 on the tail.
Well, I was going to say, it's got a 747 front end of the fuselage, but the back end has got A330 written on it, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's
written on it, but the tail, it's got the characteristic 45-degree sweep of the vertical stabilizer.
And
the APU tail cone, so that's all 7.4 there.
The bulbous knob on the back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. And the aircraft wing does say, it does say aircraft A330 on the top of the wing, so... obviously it's a 330.
Yeah. First to fly, wasn't that a Wright flyer? So it doesn't look anything like a Wright flyer.
No. That's definitely not Kitty Hawk in North Carolina.
And Steph should know. She's been there.
Yeah, Steph, come back. Hey, have you?
Hey.
Is this the airplane they flew at Kitty Hawk?
I'm pretty sure it's similar. I've been there. I took the tour, did the whole,
Yeah. Okay.
guide, National Park guide, or it's not National Park, but National Park Service does their whole spiel about the history of first flight and the Wright brothers, and they have a model in the visitor center there as well, and pretty
looks
close.
Just like that.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Do they mention the fact that Dayton, Ohio, is the birthplace of aviation in the U.S.?
Why would anyone say that?
North Carolina and Ohio, they're always like button heads on this one.
That's not right. So I'll fight anyone who wants to.
So is
have that
Dayton
argument.
where the Wright brothers were born, or where they had their bicycle shop?
Yeah, they had
the bicycle shop
there. Yeah.
Correct.
Shouldn't it be the birth? Shouldn't it be the birthplace of bicycles shops or something?
Well, yeah, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
No.
as the
I'll give
birthplace
them
of
I'll give them
aviation.
due credit for, living and working in that area and coming up with their designs, but where did their aircraft actually fly? Not Ohio.
No, that's true.
Well, not right away, anyway.
No.
Later, maybe.
Where did it first fly? Let's be specific.
Yeah. Hamish, this is actually a Bobus ARJ 327. Oh, good point.
Very good.
A Bobus.
I'm glad
I
someone
love it.
recognized it.
I like that.
Specifically, the Bobus ARJ 327i Neo, I think. Yeah, good eyes there, Hamish. Good eyes. All right. You know what? I think that's going to do it for
All right.
today's show. I think we're over the 3-hour point, and we're going to put everybody out of their misery. So, I think, and
Well, I joined
just in
back
time
in to
stuff to come.
not be in misery anymore, but okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, we can go a little bit more if you'd like, just to kind of
No, it's fine.
put the right.
Go on.
Okay. Well, we're glad that you came back in the last 30 seconds of the show, and
Hey,
or at least into
commitment.
somebody had to do the social media thing,
Well,
right?
Yeah. Couldn't leave it up to Nick.
No, he'd screw it all up. Okay.
Well, I have done
let's-
several times this show.
All right, time for the wrap up of the show. And let's see. If you're, well, welcome to the show if you're new. If you want to learn more about us, the crew, or the community, which is the best part of all of this, please head over to the airlinepilotguy.com website, where you'll find all that kind of thing, including information about merchandise and the coffee fund and plane tales and the library and the APG calendar and so much more. Again, airlinepilotguy.com. And we're on social media, or what we like to call the social meds.
We are indeed. So head on over to Twitter. We are at APG Crew. You can find our individual Twitter account information pinned to the top of that page. And then you could also head over to Instagram, where we're also at APG Crew. Occasionally I try to make sure I repost Nick's very delightful artwork for each episode.
Delightful.
It is. If you don't check it out, you really should. And then last but not least, facebook.com/airlinepilotguy.
Yeah. There you go.
So join us there. We'll see you on the social medias.
We're
Or
on that
alternatively,
pretty much. Yeah.
I was going to say, if those aren't your thing, perhaps Slack.
Very good. I just messed up your complete segue there. I'm sorry. All right. And there's no way to fix that in post. Sorry. Let's see if we can see if Hillel is available for telling us about Oh, there he is in the darn shower again. It's time for Slack. Hillel.
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
I know. You always are. Let's see. Let's see what he has to say about it.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel.
Mind if I use your razor, Jeff?
Yes, I do mind. All right. And we also like to throw out another big round of applause for this one here. Yeah. For our producer director in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Liz Piper, for all the hard work. And guess what? She is with a new MacBook. It came early, so she is so happy.
Got a puppy and a MacBook.
Happy.
Very nice.
Yay. Happy Christmas.
And thanks again, everybody, for listening and downloading and reviewing and spreading the news, word of mouth, and all that kind of stuff to people out there. We couldn't do this without you, so we do appreciate that. And with that, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
All right.
Not yet.
I know.
Almost.
Merry Advent.
Happy Hanukkah.
Go on then.
Happy
Remind
Hanukkah.
me
No,
why
not
it's
yet.
not Merry
yet?
Christmas yet.
Christmas starts on the 25th of
When
December.
does Hanukkah start? Hanukkah
Yeah, but that's too late.
No, that's the first day of Christmas.
Yeah,
Then
it
you
might
have
be,
12 days
but
of
it's
Christmas.
too late.
Hanukkah
They've got the
begins
calendar
tonight.
wrong.
Yeah, tonight. Hanukkah's tonight. Begins
Oh,
tonight.
really? Wow.
Yep.
Okay, we should have said
I
Happy
mean,
Hanukkah.
we're
just did.
celebrating a birth. There should have been a baby shower before the birth, shouldn't it? So you can start with the baby shower.
I think you're going to be on shaky ground when it comes to the theologians.
Well, let's not invite them.
Liz says she'd like to see that debate with Nick and the theologians. Me too. Anyway, okay. Then we'll just say Merry Christmas. Go ahead.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa.
Christmas, Hanukkah,
yes.
Kwanzaa.
So I don't
All
do
the
that, but if I was Jewish, I would say that, I'm sure.
There we go. Well, thanks everybody for hanging with us and putting up with us. And wow, I tell you what, I had a couple of really quick audibles to do there. I thought I was prepared for the show, but that's silly me. I'm never prepared for the show. But I was even worse prepared, or what's the right
Less
term to
prepared?
use? More ill prepared than normal with the video. But I'm glad that we got that done pretty quickly of your video stuff and yeah.
So
and-
I'll accept blame for that too, because I should have mentioned that in advance. But
No, I didn't even think about it. I saw it, I watched it, but I didn't think that would be a good thing to play on the show. And let's see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, then when Rick, you mentioned about Houston, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I met up with David, and then I thought for some reason that I'd recorded something. Anyway, so it worked out.
I was trying to nudge your memory.
Thank you so much.
You nudged it into a memory he didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. David goes, yeah, you didn't do a picture or a recording, Jeff. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
oh,
No, we talked about it. I said, sometimes it's just nice just to have a meetup with people and not feel like you got to do it just to have something to talk about on the show, And I even asked him, and he'll verify this if he's still there in the live audience, if he wanted to do a recording, and he said, "No, we don't need to." Okay, cool. So
you're off the hook.
yeah.
Yeah, but it gives you something to talk about.
Well, I don't need anything to talk about. I have enough. I talk enough on this show, so nobody wants to hear me blah blah blah. This is what I did.
Yes,
Well,
do.
if you attend a meetup with Nick, I will tell you that you'll just end up with a microphone in front of your face at some point. You won't get the option. It won't be
Yeah,
asked.
that's true.
You'll just be.
Yeah, ask that bartender guy or no, it wasn't a bartender. The guy that's a friend of your son's that you just stuck a microphone in
Oh,
front of.
yes. Well, he works in a pub. Yeah, you're right. So
Oh, yeah.
bartender guy's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder how he's getting on, actually. He's still working towards his commercials.
Oh,
And
Liz
what a
says he was in the
great way
chat
to
room
do it.
earlier.
Sorry?
Yeah, Reese was in the chat room earlier, according to
I
Liz.
missed him. Damn.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Oh, okay. Well,
At the beginning of the show.
I don't suppose he's getting a lot of flying this time of year, but
Yeah, it's Graham Fig right there. Good evening, all APGers. Greetings from Westchester, HPN. What's the HPN
White Plains,
stand for?
New York.
White Plains. Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow on a G4 charter to Thomasville, Georgia. They
Very
make
nice.
furniture down there, I think.
Actually, it's Thomasville, North Carolina, I think, isn't it?
Oh, really?
do you think he's going down there to buy a
You sure they
bureau?
don't make furniture in Thomasville, Georgia?
They probably do.
Somebody does in their
Well,
shop.
I hear they make butter in Land O'Lakes, Florida. So yeah, why not?
That's
why
true.
not furniture?
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that's not Florida? That's what, Wisconsin, Land of Lakes? The butter
No, it's
people?
like Florida.
Oh, you know what I forgot to
What's
do?
not? What did you forget to do?
I forgot to
Put your pants on.
I forgot to mention Greg and thank him for.
Oh
his
yeah,
input.
yeah. When I heard,
it's on the full length one. Of course, I always put a bit at the end there,
Mhm.
thanking him and giving his website, but forgot to put it in the show.
oh, you know what? I tell you what, that's a great idea. Liz says, why don't you say something right now, like we've just listened to the Plain Tale, and then I can put it in on the audio.
Okay then. Hang on a sec.
Sure. Quiet on the set.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's absolutely brilliant, and a big thank you to Greg Willits for helping me out yet again on this tale with his fabulous accent. So, if you're interested in a brilliant voiceover artist who's got a fair can carry a fair tune, even though he didn't have to today, then you can find him at gregwillits.com.
gregwillits.com. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, there's the problem.
Very nice.
Okay, now that I have my recorder going, go ahead and do that again. No, I'm just kidding. I had it running.
Oh, yeah, good point. I'll stop mine now.
Mine ran, but it recorded mostly silence for the past.
It's going to be a small file then, I guess.
No, it's still a large file. I haven't stopped it yet. It's just
All right, I'm going to stop
recording
mine.
a lot of nothing.
Yeah,
stop.
3.25 hours of
I'm
dead
stopped.
silence.
No, like 2 hours and 20 minutes, roughly, of silence.
Mind you, wouldn't have heard you in the background. Part of
No,
your
because I
meeting.
left and went into a different room.
Ah, right. So we just heard the burglar.
I was multitasking until
That-
I had to actually speak up and say something. I was folding laundry.
So,
very nice.
So here's
Something's done.
Here's some what do they call that? Inside baseball or behind the scenes. So when we're recording individual files, so when we're doing the show, so Steph, if she has to do a big sneeze or something, she can mute herself, and she does that all the time while we're recording the show. So you
She's
don't
continually
nobody
sneezing.
no yeah nobody hears it. But the recording that's going on when behind the scenes that sometimes we'll use for the actual recorded track. Well, there's no way for her to mute that. Well, I guess
Nope.
there is, but it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And yeah,
And I just make sure I sneeze right into the microphone so it scares the crap out of Jeff when he's
Sometimes
just
it's like
going
gives me a-
along, like, let's see how it's.
it's very startling. Very startling.
And of
It's better
course,
than-
I continually forget that I think I've muted and that Jeff can't hear me anymore. And so I'm just rude about him. And then, of course, I continually forget that if I send in the recording, that's going to be included. So,
Yeah, so he has to actually edit his own recording before he sends it to me.
yeah, either that or I get a strong letter from HR.
That's not true. Hey, Rick, if you need to go, head out of here, man.
Yeah, guys, I need to head out here.
Okay.
Dinner
You're a
time.
working
All right.
man.
But I'll reach out to you guys with I'll be on a trip next week. So Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, I'll be on a trip. But either one of those 2 days works out fine for me. So whatever
In the
whichever
afternoon,
one's
on
better.
Wednesday or
Yeah.
Thursday? Okay.
Either Wednesday or Thursday, whichever one's fine.
Can't do Wednesday, Thursday for me.
Okay.
Well, actually, I can do Wednesday, but it wouldn't be ideal.
I'll have to look at my calendar after we stop the broadcast.
Okay.
All right. Thanks everybody in the chat room. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you so much. We love you and hope you enjoyed this holiday season.
Angel in the sound barrier. Oh, golly.
I like that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to work out how to do a picture of an angel breaking wind. Oh, sorry. Got a name.
Not a good idea.
Okay.
Thanks, Micah.
All right, guys, I got to run.
Cheers, Micah.
All right.
ya, Rick.
See you, Rick. All right. And let's go ahead and end the StreamYard broadcast as well. Bye, everybody.